time here in the 2023 NACE Spring Semi-Finals. And time to let you know, alongside me here is Infernosis and Scott. It's time to play defense here for these two teams, as I believe I just lagged out the freaking wazoo. Anyway, these two teams both playing defense. James Madison defending a title from the fall semester. Butler defending home turf as they are hosting the Spring Finals in just 2 weekends.
So the game of defense will only last long enough for one of these teams to truly meet their end. With Kettering moving on as well into their semifinal, their round of 4 matchup, we could see a repeat of last year's LAN finals, or we see something entirely different. And while you do like a bit of the old, sometimes a bit of the news just as nice, this matchup is going to be very nice here.
I'm excited to see this matchup as well. Our teams are undefeated through regulation. They've, I believe, both not lost a map through playoffs as well. 2-0s through and through. And it's been clean for both. And that's honestly to be expected. Both of them, as I mentioned, going undefeated through regulation, through the groups. They didn't even have to play in conference play-ins because it didn't matter. And now is the number 2 and 3 seed respectively, losing only out to Davenport, who had a better showing in that difficulty of group. They're looking pretty good. Let's take a look at our schedule. We've already seen Call of Duty thus far today. You saw James Madison pick up a dub up against Northwood University, or Northwood University dropped James Madison, sorry, 3-0, not even requiring a 4th map, nor a 2nd match. We have Rainbow Six with Butler taking on the other James Madison squad, and then in Counter-Strike, it's Michigan Tech taking on the Rochester Institute of Technology down in our final matchup of the semifinals.
I would have been very impressed, Dad, if James Madison had actually managed to knock Northwood off the board for Call of Duty. Not only is Northwood the best Valorant college in the nation, it's also considered one of the best Call of Duty ones as well. I'll have to see if that continues to hold true, but with a victory over James Madison University, I'm sure they're plenty happy. Let's go ahead and highlight the James Madison University and the Butler University squads that are here for Rainbow Six Siege, the better esport through and through here, Dan. Well, I guess it depends kind of who you ask. For the Butler side, it's Inham, Jonesy, Big Chai, Raikai, Gravy, and over for the James Madison University, that's Prey, Tweb, Kelp, Poker, and Zero. I don't think that's correct.
That is the Call of Duty roster. The Rainbow Six roster for them is Jarvis, Oshi, Shadows, Bluekey, and PK.
It's all right. We got it. We understand it. We listed. So it's all that's needed, Dan, to get the job done. Let's talk about our map bans and the bans in general. It started off with Chalet getting knocked off the board, followed by Bank, Theme, and Oregon. So no tried 2 tested T3 map of Oregon, but Clubhouse was still in there somewhere, but still managed to go through unpicked in our first 2 map selections. It is Border and Villa starting off, and unfortunately, Clubhouse, same as Cafe, get knocked off, leading Skyscraper to be the decider should a 3rd map be needed.
I also want to point out that when you put the bans in chat, you spelled Cafe C-A-F-E.
That is true, I did. That's all right. One of our producers spelled Chalet C-L-A-T-E-T. So we had that right at least.
Lele?
I think that's what it was. There's something along those lines. It was, we're all different here in our own individual ways.
Well, the first map of Border, I'm honestly excited for. We were talking about the map bans beforehand, and I'm just excited as something different. Yesterday was a wild matchup between Kettering and St. Clair. Kettering obviously making it to the semifinals you talked about, but in very close fashion. Yeah. I'm honestly a little surprised at the St. Clair showing as well. We saw them drop out, I believe it was, I don't remember who it was. It was Drexel. That's who it was. I watched it on their stream while we actually had the RIT and Cincinnati game going round 12. And then that Kettering matchup would have been a difficult one, but a shame they were dropped away. Into our game we will go. Border is our first of the day.
Ooh, yeah, you were talking about that Kettering game. I was on broadcast with a fellow casts, aka John, and we were so darn sure that Kettering would take that in a landslide 2-0 victory. But St. Clair put up quite unbelievably the best performance they could, as far as I believe. I don't know, maybe they had more in the gas tank. But unfortunately, they don't get to showcase that with that loss in OT on both maps. A ridiculously long affair, only 1 round away from going the full distance imaginable for those 2 maps. But unfortunately for them, Kettering was able to take that win, and they'll move on for a chance now being able to step into the finals and repeat what they did last year, hopefully with a better ending for themselves. not coming in second this time around. Fanface does go through. James Madison as their first pick. They've locked away Osa for the map here of Border. Followed up with Jackal, the Iron Knock scanner, not being allowed to come through. Defensively, Butler will now get to choose their runt of the litter, so to say. And it seems like they're taking their darndest time to do so, but they'll take a very standard ban decision to take a zombie off the board.
This is the first standard ban of the 3 we're actually seeing as well. Jackal obviously sometimes gets banned, whatever, it depends on the team. But Osa is one that really surprises me here on Border especially. Sure, you can bring it in 1 or 2 sites, but it's not a consistent factor. So that really leads to the fact that James Madison just do not want to compete with Butler on it. The Valkyrie, a little bit more of a stock standard ban. The defense seems a little bit more normal than the offense in terms of bans out. But I'm still a little surprised, considering what James Madison dropped off the Osa. I would have favored a lot of other bands, honestly. Nook probably being at the top of that list.
Nook is extremely viable here on Border. There's a lot of metal detectors that can theoretically go off, right? You have a whole back in the day of saying, hey, Nook can get through these without being spotted. But just in general, Border has a lot of annoying default cams that do catch out a lot of the attack and just kind of slow down the approach even further. It's one of the reasons why Border is not as heavily played as some of the other maps, especially when it comes to the amateur and or collegiate scene, which typically sit around the same level of play. But it being selected, I'm sure we're plenty happy with the performance that we're going to be brought for here today. James Madison start off on the defense. It looks like their operator selection is none too far away. No, it doesn't shy that far away from what we're typically used to for a map like Border. PK will be bringing out the Melusi, meaning the Banshees are on the board. Maybe expecting a clutch drone to come out here to deny that utility for the later stages of these rounds, but Border is much less of a final 20-second push towards site and more of a minute-and-a-half grueling towards the objective with multiple sight lines to work from.
Also surprised to see how much James Madison's dedicating over towards this office side. 3 separate players, a decent bit of utility as well. They are trying to create as much rotations as they can while also being able to cut off Butler on that attack. And Butler's heading in that general direction. Big Shy picking up that Finka. I like the decision there, especially Spear, an underrated weapon in my personal opinion. I like it. Lack of recoil, decent bit of damage, you do you. But James Madison's defense is looking awkward, at least different, to say the very least, as honestly were their map bans and their operator bans here on Border. A lot of differences coming through as we start off this semifinal.
I'm actually very impressed with the lineup for James Madison. The only weakness they have that's glaring is the actual door leading in towards B objective. Past that, they have full control over the point. They have an extension over here towards office, like you said. That sets themselves up quite nicely for a good hold, and with the castle barricades that were also placed down, it means that there is a huge noise queue set up to let them be told that, hey, Butler is engaging. Butler is pursuing this objective and pushing here into this map. And once you hear that audio cue, the team can transition. The biggest weakness, though, like I said, is the rush in from Butler. If Butler start to expedite their push forward and then take a very quick approach, it'll catch them off guard, and James Madison will be left to retake their own objective, which may just be the most difficult part of all in this round.
Luki gets downed, but should be able to be retrieved. I believe they were downed through the reinforced wall break you see with the Selma there as Enham's holding that long angle across. But no, Luki is retrieved. Shots almost through the wall would have landed. But the weird spot here for James Madison on the defensive side is they do not have as much flexibility available for them. Luki is down to just 1 health after being down. There's no third chance for them. That is all the mulligans they will get. Luki now just back to holding patient angles. Again, lucky to be alive. But Butler need to start to go. The time's going to start to hurt them more than the damage onto Bluekey will. They start to find kills. A good follow-up, but a TK for JMU. And Butler now look to go.
Gravy makes a huge load of noise with a proximity alarm. Does find a kill onto Oshi, though. Shadows left alone after the kill into Big Shot. It's an even one-on-one. 40 seconds still left in remaining, meaning Shadows has plenty of time still to work with, as unfortunately, Gravy does not have control here of the diffuser and has not opted to move in towards the side to go for a plant. They're running out of time and options, though. Time continues to tick further in favor of James Madison. Father Time acting in a 2v1, it seems. Gravy will move in from that east stairs side in through the office's breach they've created. Diffuser is down on the ground, but Shadows could swing in a moment's notice. Notices them through the breach in from Fountain, but will make their hasty retreat escape from Hall. Now stepping in towards Arsenal, spotted first and foremost, doesn't get the upper hand of the first shot, and they'll pay the price. Shadows finding what could have been an ultimate demise, somehow coming up on top and finding themselves victorious in round 1.
Taking advantage of a mistake as well there is Butler as a whole, but Gravy more specifically. Shadows on this defensive side had the opportunity to find that kill, but immediately was cut away after a little bit of game of peekaboo around the hard reinforce, or the hard door hinge. I think that's the word I'm looking for. It was weird, but it worked, and off the back of it, Butler started things off well. And a reminder, this is not only a semifinal to get into the finals, obviously, but it's to get to LAN as well. Butler is hosting the aforementioned LAN, so if they lose this, they don't even get to defend home turf. If James Madison lose this, they don't get to defend their previous title from the fall.
How unfortunate that they get put here in this matchup together, right? You said it's a game of defense, and how interesting would it have been to see both of these two teams in the finals, returning victor and home territory hosts. It's denied, though. It is what it is. These teams will have to find themselves a tough matchup first and foremost. That first round, more specifically, was quite a tumultuous battle between these two teams. Butler only coming out ahead by the skin of their teeth. James Madison defensively will have to reevaluate their approach. That TK really hurt them there, Dan. They would have had 2 players in that final engagement against the one, which they had already had, but they wouldn't have been isolated as much as they were previously. Which means, theoretically, a refrag would have gone through much cleaner. As, unfortunately for them, Shadows was stepped away from the objective where typically would be needed. And that's where that secondary player was felled just moments prior by Butler, leading to the 1v1.
James Madison now looking to make up for lost time. We will see a interesting decision. I want to get your take on this. Considering the 1.5x was taken away from the AUG A3, do you favor bringing the Cade here with the AUG or with the TCSG? Because more often than not, you just see slug shotgun over the lesser of the two.
It's fairly dependent on the map that you're playing on. For most maps, you're typically bringing... a tough question. A lot of the times you're bringing a Mark 14 on the defense, right? You're going to bring the Syria Gates, you're going to bring that. Means you already have a marksman rifle at range. The TCSG essentially acts as that in the first place. You don't need a secondary. If it's just the Cade in play, maybe I would opt for that if you don't have anything else up on the board. But for a map like Border that is very confrontational around these corners, much less so of through walls that, you know, you're making small holes through to take shots at, I would dare say the AUG is the better choice in this decision. I think that in terms of the corridors and hallways, the AUG is going to reward James Madison, going to reward Oshi much more than it's going to do for any other weapon in hand.
Butler on this attacking side as well. I like the fuse selection here, especially considering the bomb site. PK needs to play a game of peekaboo. Finds a first. I don't think he's expecting a second player, though. He has absolutely no idea. Almost wins the fight still, but Gravy will shut him down. And in the span of 90 seconds, James Madison has lost 80% of its manpower and has now left Blue Key in a 1v4, needing to drop, well, the exact same 80% of Butler on his own with just a 9x9 VSN with no 1.5 on it. This is a problem, and one that will not be solved as James Madison is cut away decisively over on Bathroom Tellers.
If they're still a 1.5, they would have noticed the players swinging them from hallway door. That's not the case. Unfortunate as it is, Butler will have a much cleaner round 2. It honestly seemed like James Madison were not privy to actually defending their lives in that round, much less the objective, which wasn't even a necessity for Butler to pursue. Losing 3 players over towards open, leaving 2 players in towards site. It just was James Madison falling apart at the seams. And I think that's the right idea for Butler. Isolate kills for the 1v1. Take a pick over, they get 1 kill back, you've got a refrag, and guess what? They weren't understanding that they're moving in 2s. 2 is a dangerous number. It's not the loneliest it could be. And sometimes it's nice to have a friend right behind you to pad your back and pad your stats, hopefully give you an assist after you die.
Butler on this attacking side. I'm going to keep establishing the fact that this is a dominant attack for them, because one thing that has been seen prior for Butler is their difficulty switching to an opposing side. Granted, this is their map selection, sure, but border defense isn't the easiest thing in the world, especially when you impact your teammates. In prep phase, Jarvis is stuck on just about 80 HP. I think there's a problem. Because I don't know if prep phase team damage should be on.
It is probably not supposed to be on. It is what it is, though, Dan. They'll have to survive with like 85 HP. I think the number that they're sitting at right now, maybe a little less, maybe around 75, 80. That gives Butler a little bit of an edge. But they still actually have to pursue the site. Moving in from the outside, there's that door frame I was mentioning previously. If the rush were to come through from Butler, it will cut and, you know, really hurt James Madison's attempted defense here. Because like you said, they really do prefer the extension here over towards offices. Then if Butler just forego that avenue, it could punish them. And with the fact that there are no nitro cells available for James Madison, it makes it even easier for Butler to go for that push. And they have no toxic bans, meaning they have to man ego swing every one of these angles if they were to deny that quick plant here on A.
Positive start for them is dropping at him off the bat, but Johnsy now with this Ying Candela just walking in. Oshi couldn't see anything. They played a staring contest with the sun and lost. James Madison now with a man advantage back, though, off the back of a trade. Raikai very lucky to be alive. The spray across almost landing through two separate walls, but in the end, it's still PK to fall, and James Madison to lose whatever semblance of advantage they had just a few seconds prior.
Lukey holding back as best they can. Jarvis locking in from main hallway, has a cheeky angle through a door frame. Luke is the player we noted that was taking long shots through two walls. Not enough to break open that wall enough for a big sight line. But there's Gravy trying to make that outside veranda approach in through Archives. It falls short. Shadows gets the kill, now looking for a second. DB knows Raikai and will conclude the kill quickly after the fact. Not aware that they're going to be swung by Shadows again. He tries to toss out a Candela. It's not only swept away by the magnets, but their life is swept away by the magnet thrower. And it will be a James Madison defensive round win.
And that early damage did absolutely nothing to impact the round. James Madison was able to flexibly play off the back of it, and most importantly, the aggression worked out for them. It was a nice change of pace. I think a little bit more patience was required from Butler, because James Madison was playing over patient the first couple rounds, and then immediately flipped that switch. That's what I was looking for. I had a friend do that 2 days ago, and I made fun of it. It was bad. But James Madison...
the turntable.
Basically just flipped that switch and played aggressive, and honestly took those fights that I don't think Butler were really expecting.
Note that before James Madison had 2, if not 3 players extended over towards offices with 1 player holding out towards that southern hall. Eastern stairwell, that corner elbow stairwell. James Madison opted not to do that this time around. They did have an extension, but they only had 1 player actually inside offices, and they did eventually lose their life. That kind of gave the swooping edge to James Madison, saying, hey, they are once again taking control of offices, though they died. We get a ton of intel, and we already are at the advantage theoretically because we're defending on this point. Let's just play for that in the first place. James Madison, though, now opting to go for the first floor point, and it is not back over the standard objective of choice. They really did not like that option. They're going to head over to open and maybe try to catch Butler off guard. But let's remember how quickly Butler took that A point just 2 rounds prior, knocking down 3 players on the entry in towards only losing 1 and losing no more past that point. Butler have plenty of options in a pretty darn close window to swing on into the objective and get a plan over in corner.
Honestly, if Butler wanted to just take the site, it would probably be the better of the 2 options. We talked about this on Thursday, the 2 differences between site immediate takes and taking long times to try and clear out roams. Sometimes it's better to forego dropping the roam and just play for an early post plant. That's not the case here for Butler. They do want to try and clear out the roam. About 45 seconds gone in the round. They're just now starting to encroach on the actual map itself. But an odd position for them. PK, that shot almost lands across on towards Big Shy, who's playing aggressive with the SMG-12 in hand, but dies to a C4 from down below. Oshi on the pulse, times it well, and finds an opener, but immediate trade is there. But so is Oshi. A follow-up! Raikai's dead. 2 for 1 in the early openers.
Sometimes the high ground isn't everything it seems to be, Dan. Sometimes Anakin can get their shining moments. Man, disadvantage set up for Butler. Honestly doing everything they can to rotate through main hall, was about to take elbow, but decides instead to head over towards that security side from break. Lukey was holding up on top of the servers itself from that hatch drop inside of box. They'll eventually fall completely to the ground and no longer have that cheekier angle to work from. Butler seem to have maintained and gained control over the second floor as James Madison have just entirely removed themselves from that position. Right idea, maybe wrong time, maybe a bit early, but Butler are still too scared to engage in good time. Because of that hesitancy, James Madison will be rewarded for an early retreat away from that point. Head is spotted, Blue Key sees the player but can't connect to the kill, and Dan, they still have the buck, so at least they can still work from the open floor plan.
This verticality may be a difference maker for Butler as well. If they take a little bit too long this verticality, they're in a pretty bad spot, but if they can force James Madison out of comfortable positions and make them uncomfortable, out of position, force them away, then they're in a good spot. Gravy will have to break the Surrey gate with their previous drone and look to jump in, but their whereabouts are certainly known. They have no more EMPs to drop away that bulletproof camera, so the spray will land Blue Key just off the back of a red ping, and that bulletproof changing this scope of the round. The diffuser down inside of the site. Oh, she's still playing with that cardiac sensor in their back pocket. And Enham just being swung from seemingly every angle. A clean finish for James Madison and good flexibility once more as that early aggression pays out in a second consecutive round.
Butler have nobody on the covering fire for your planter. On top of that, your planter decided to stick their head out into the open. You know, if you turn your head towards the wall and plant that way, it'll be your flank that's actually slightly perusing out into this open space. Means
your butt.
If you don't get hit instantly, it won't kill you instantly. Your head's an instant kill. If it's the only thing sticking out, they only have to hit it once. Your flank, they've got to hit a ton. It does not deal very much damage, though you'll probably regret it afterwards. It's still not enough to get the job done, and Butler would have at least gotten the plant down, or at least been in a better space to do so, meaning a post plant. And they had control of the second floor where James Madison had completely escaped themselves from. Overall, a good round for James Madison. JMU did a wonderful job of actually clearing out the players despite being at a theoretical ground disadvantage. They took 2 shots from the floorboards, got 2 kills, one of them from a nitro cell. They set themselves up wonderfully to take down Butler, and Butler did themselves no justice. With Raikai dying, having been on that fuse, you lose so much of that ability to clear out inside that wall, the opposing side of the wall from ventilation. That was their covering fire attempt. They were going to use the cluster charges to create space, meaning no one could push the player planting inside ventilation, and it would have worked. But Raikai dies, and Butler is forced to pay the price because they have no opposing strategy to work with.
The main part of their strategy fell. For all of you wondering what the heck Scott's talking about, when he says flank, he means your butt. Just figured I'd really... I mean, your flank isn't a body part. Just saying. Your gluteus maximus. There you go, for all you medical majors out there that may very well. I mean, yeah, but I can say it and make it funny. So that's the entire reason I made the point. Butler on the attack, now looking to do something similar to the previous round, but changing a little bit. I like the adjustment for Raikai to go into the IQ and try and clear out some of this defensive utility, notably the Electro Claw or Electro Claws, neither of which have been put down, by the way, and the EDDs. Blue Key to try and eliminate some of that flank holds on the Butler side. Weird spot still, as Big Shy will just walk in, and they've already gained most of the top floor, if not all of it. I think the extent of what's held now for James Madison is the armory side at best. That's a difficult hold with still a minute 30 plus left in the round.
The good news is, Ellers and Bathroom are very difficult to approach still from the top down. Yes, you get some control from offices with those floorboard breaks, and there is theoretically a hatch you can drop towards into Bathroom. But most of the time, James Madison is going to be extended off the side. At most, there'll be one man actively controlling inside of Tellers and one man inside of Bathroom. I think that still happens to be the case here for JMU. Not enough of the floorboards can be cleared by Butler to truly make that a safe space. It looks like Butler are maybe looking to drop through hatch Arsenal itself. That would be a horrible decision. Oh, she's watching at this point, and even the other ass they thought was safe, Jarvis, has not been thrown down to ventilation. 2 easy kills. Interesting nade choice there as well. I'm amazed at what we're seeing go down here, and it's a total dismantling of Butler's attack. James Madison just outright cutting Butler apart at every turn. They get 1 kill. That is it. The only reward for a horrible round.
Understandably, they will call a timeout. That is 3 consecutive rounds Butler's now been cut away on. James Madison's adjustments have worked out nearly perfectly for them because they've been playing aggressive upon aggressive upon aggressive in these last 3. Look at it. They've just won by kills in every single instance because Butler is not expecting a lot of the aggression. I also loved the fight that we saw, especially there between Big Shy and Shadows. You can see Big Shy had the 2x on the Mark 14 and was looking across, but there was a soft wall that was mostly broken between them and Shadows, yet Shadows had movement in his favor. Big Shy was going across his screen, so saw the head moving and shot at it. Big Shy was just looking at a wall that happened to have a small black hard hat above it that he didn't realize was the castle's head and died because of it. And now James Madison are very happy with a lot of these rounds. The adjustments have worked for them. They have played a little bit more flexible on the defensive side, and Butler just has not adjusted basically at all. They've stuck with the same game plan, of which has barely worked. They still need to clear out that pulse, and they were unsuccessful in doing so, even with Raikai bringing that IQ.
Butler winning the first 2 rounds honestly puts them in a very poor spot here, Dan. James Madison gets 3 objectives in a row, 3 different objectives. That would be typically the singing point for an attacking team to call their timeout, because now they've seen theoretically all 3 objectives that would be played for JMU. They can build strategies in accordance to those points all within 1 timeout. That's at least the standard when it comes to your timeout calling. But there's only 1 round left. Because they took those first 2, they're left in a state where they can build a strategy. They have a, 1 of 2 chance to really guess what objective it's going to. They know what it's going to be, but they don't get the full depth of that timeout that you would say if James Madison took the first 3 initially, which is a little worse for wear. But Butler already having those 2, plenty happy with it. They're looking to go 3-3 at halftime on JMU's pick, which could be a huge thing for Butler when they transition to the defense. Because James Madison looked good defensively. They go for gunfights, though. Are they going to be punished for that over-aggression where they're not as greatly assisted by the map that is working for the defensive side? Or are they going to do the exact same thing and just win on kills?
Well, the one thing they're doing is changing a lot. Comparing this round's operator lineup on James Madison's side to round 3, in which the last time they played and won this site, 2 operators are the same, but they're on different players. Oshi's picking up the Warden instead of Jarvis. You can see PK on the Wumai instead of Shadows, and then Shadows is going from Wumai to Solus, Blue Key from Maestro to Cade, and you're seeing Legion off the board alongside Castle off the board in favor of that Mira Solus combo, and it seems to work. The adjustments have been made, but Big Shy on that Nook that was not banned by JMU is now activating. 1 kill found. Gravy, a nice shot with the para, up and over. Blue Key none the wiser, and Butler's now making a change. All importantly, to pressure immediately. Only a minute gone, and James Madison's already out of their comfortability.
That armory window is one that's typically highly slept on. Note as well, the Montaigne on the board for Butler means that they can indeed go for the pressure in from that Archives doorframe safely. And with the Nitro Cell having already been ripped and dipped, and the second one they would have had no longer being available as the player has been felled, that puts Butler in a beautiful position to make use here of this shield. Candelo tossed over that soft wall in through towards Arsenal or Armory, as he's still working alongside Raikai in Archives, though. And while they do know for sure that the mirror is close by of Jarvis, they can't get anything off because that wall being left soft means there's no safety. PK gets a headshot through the shield seemingly, maybe Raikai turning a bit too much, and what started off as a solid point for Butler has now turned to shambles. No safe space, 1 player remaining, and Gravy, well, they're about to turn into mashed potatoes. And while Gravy and mashed potatoes sounds great, you're either one or the other in this state, and Gravy's about to be, well, stuck between a rock and a hard place with 3 players going against them.
Probably use some bread and butter with this 1v3 as well, if you're a food connoisseur. And I don't think Butler's going to find any, unless it's them just being cut apart like a hot knife through butter, one may even say. Now Gravy walking through bulletproof shield or the deployable shield in front of them, still trying to take the fight, but it Jarvis just gets to play the game of peekaboo, and with a higher fire rate, it doesn't really matter how much damage the Para does if it can't hit as many shots as it needs, not even the one-shot headshot found. And James Madison lose the first 2 rounds, sure, but the adjustments were there, and the flexibility, I'm going to say it once more, was just the same. Even though they won round 3, they almost completely revamped their defensive lineup for Armory Archives, and it worked perfectly as they held later on.
James Madison had completely forgone the attempted entrance in from Archives last time that it was played. Timeout called by Butler, and James Madison says, okay, they're going to counteract this site. They're going to counter our last defensive hold. There's no way to call a timeout and do the exact same thing, would they, Dan? Lucky for them, they guessed right. Butler did, in fact, change up their strategy. They went for an Archives door play. They went for the Montaigne push, and they played it perfectly. James Madison brought 2 nitro cells, and while neither really found the impact they were hoping for of that Monty, apparently the shots from the MP5K over inside Arsenal can get the job done despite the shield being up in their head. I like the idea from Butler, but the execution just falls short. And instead of executing themselves correctly on a site, they were instead executed in turn. And now they'll get to choose how to defend, and they'll go right on back. Same objective of play, but this time Butler will have their chance to show what they're capable on the defense.
Talking about Butler having difficulties with their switches, we've seen this in seasons prior and in other leagues just the same, but it's usually on maps they don't pick. It's entirely possible it happens here, where they looked good on the attacking side and they just shut down after, at least the early part of the attacking side. But I'd like to see them, especially with this lineup, look for more aggressive fights like we saw from James Madison. Enham playing with the Mark 14 in hand, one of the better weapons in the game, considering it still hasn't been nerfed, and DMRs are kind of broken, let's be real with each other. But James Madison apparently don't care about the lineup. They just want to go. And if they do, they have a really good setup for it. Nobody's in that general vicinity. They could just plant, and there's not a whole lot that could be done about it. Smoke put down. They still have extra utility off the back of it, and no sound is there. C4 over top, I believe, was denied by the EMP, and they just get the plant down in 15 seconds.
There was no chance. There was no nitro cell available for Butler. They did not play an operator selection that was indicative of a defense here for Archives push. Montaigne locking from door. What are you going to do about it? Here go the firebolts, and once again, James Madison are positioning themselves well. Gravy, though, finding 2 kills back-to-back. Unfortunately, neither under the Montaigne.
Gross.
Shadows working from below, as maybe a wonderful angle to deny this as well. But they're just barely on the visual for it. Can they see? They see the head just barely, but they don't see it in time. No! What are you doing, Shadows? Butler will steal a round out from underneath you, and I mean quite literally, as you give them round 7 for free, because Shadows can't notice the tiniest of pixels.
His head was filling in the entire slot between the metal bars, too. He saw his foot, he saw his head. I mean, obviously, we know what to look for with the X-ray vision. But that's something, if you don't see him anywhere else, you know exactly where you have to look. The long arm is only so far, and that really was not that far. James Madison, that's a round you should win just every day of the week. You had the setup well, you knew exactly what you needed to do, and honestly, 2 separate things hurt them in that round. The lack of overall setup directly below the diffuser because of the unfortunate placement of that unpenetrable or impenetrable flooring just below. I believe it's a light structure. And overtaking gunfights when you're in a post plant. Play hide and go seek. You have a 5v5 post plant on one of the more difficult sites to attack, and yet you still drop away from it. That should have been your round every day.
The edge of the rug? Am I wrong?
I think it's a light structure, like on the bottom side and towards ventilation. I'm pretty sure it's a light.
Observer, please.
You can't see it on the observer, I don't think.
He's not listening. It's all right.
If you can look at the ceiling, you'd be able to see it.
We'll see Butler go back in a couple rounds, Dan. It'll be fine.
True.
Whew. They can't go back to it yet, though, with that last round win. And the buffer that James Madison had created themselves of being a 2-round spree could have been 3. But with Butler's inevitable steal, it seems, things get a little bit closer and less precarious for their defensive half. Solus is on the board. Johnson's doing everything they can to gather as much information. It's worked to a degree. 2 drones having been destroyed for James Madison, but they get caught off guard. Yeah, there's no Jackal, but there's a Gemini replicator for PK, and there's drones galore that haven't been dealt with fast enough. The Solus lose their life, and that puts Butler in a very disadvantageous position with a lack of their extension effectively still in play, and a huge bit of information they were reliant upon no longer available.
Good disengagement at a bare minimum from Gravy. As soon as they realized they had lost that real estate, they just back away. Use the shorty, get out as soon as you can, because you cannot afford to go into a 5v3 on a bathroom teller's defense without even bleeding out all that much utility from the attacking side. Look at the attack. The extent of utility they've used thus far, a couple Argus cameras, and a phone call, that's about it. And James Madison's happy. They also were very happy they were able to hack the cell phones because default cameras now counter the defense, especially knowing that James Madison has them available. The swing in through this custom side, but Shadows is evaporated. A follow-up onto PK, and NHAM doesn't need information. They just need action and a gun in their hand.
Let's think about that for just a moment. James Madison knew that NHAM was coming from that way. They knew with the default cams like you had mentioned, and still fell victim to the player off the back of one gorgeous flick and a spray down on the secondary for the player who theoretically should have just pivoted back to the rest of the team after they lost their one, technically the 1v2, and just played for the next fight for a crossfire. And because they thought they could re-extend for the Avenge, it falls short. Elbow cam tossed out here. Gonna make Gravy forced to evacuate down the stairwell and you're over towards lobby. And Ham is pretty much trapped alongside the rest of the team. A bit of a strange combo. One in server, one not far beyond that towards the check-in of server, and maybe one starting to pivot in through that bathroom door frame. But with still James Madison on the top floor with the hammer still available, they're going to be very rushed for time. Jarvis tries to drop down Hatch. It's in Ham for their third kill of the round, hunting for a possible ace. Plant is going down, though, for Blue Key, and it's planted in bathroom from Hatch, but the flank comes out for Gravy, and that may just be all she wrote, as it will be closed and secured by Butler, with Blue Key being the last to follow, cut off from that server side.
Butler, in a similar way as well, were happy to give up a little bit of the site just to make sure they could collapse post-plant. And the unexpected walk-up from Gravy on the top floor, I'm pretty sure I saw Gravy, after shooting the Argus camera, walk back up metal stairs. I was expecting them to go in through Armory, but they smartly decided otherwise. Because there's a metal detector in Armory, or the window that you have to jump through in a small office, they decided to cut noise entirely and play a little bit more patient. As soon as there was an audible and apparent bit of aggression onto the site itself, they walked in through the 90 hallway, through the office door, and found the freest of kills possible because there was no information to work off of. The Argus camera had already been shot. There's no extra redundancy there for the attacking side, and James Madison are cut down again off the back of a lack of information. Butler are playing extremely smart in these post-plant scenarios.
Will that continue? Time will have to tell, but that's a 2-round spree once again. But let's not forget the first half here. Yeah. What happened? Butler take the first 2 and then give up 4 to James Madison. Will we see a repeat? Know your history, folks, or be doomed to repeat it. Butler will need to make sure that they do not grow complacent, because complacency was truly one of their biggest issues against James Madison's defense. Not enough diversification for strategy, felt like they weren't pivoting around corners fast enough, and the engagements at which they should have had an advantage inevitably fell the other way. Butler go for an early swing out through that Arsenal door, leading into the outside. Unfortunately, no one for James Madison, giving them the time of day. They'll be forced to re-barricade and step back in for the defense.
James Madison are in a pretty good spot, but Sledge for them on another situation of customs is weird, because we saw this attempt prior, but Butler's defense is looking to set up for it.
PK from break room clears default cam. Dan, Butler have finally made it through 60 seconds without losing a player. Something we've not necessarily seen from them defensively just yet. Some adaptability may be key. Droned out, though. There goes NHAM's position.
Oh, no.
And we've got, unfortunately, the worst of all situations. The drone bug.
There we go.
There we go.
It used to be much worse. So,
And
bright
Border
side
used
is
to be
there
much
at least.
When Border initially got brought into the competitive pool, that was a very rough time for R6 right after a huge update, and when you would free cam up above, the whole map would tear in two and you'd see a giant astro wall come up in between objectives. It was awful. And it also would crash.
It was so much fun. It was so much fun. I don't know what you're talking about. Shadows apparently having fun, just not even looked at apparently, because James Madison is just walking through this top floor. Over pressure of this Butler defense is forcing them into sensory overload, not even knowing what to look at nor what to listen for. And it's a flawless round for James Madison as they once more collapse on Butler, but this time cross their T's, dot their I's, and find the kills required.
James Madison already back in a solid state. Butler back down to a round buffer against the competition, and it's another scenario where Butler didn't really have a solid fight against JMU. It was a really poor round. Like you said, Shadows just walks in. Nobody is watching that angle, despite the fact that two players were holding that side. They were tunnel vision in one direction over the other. There were 3 entrances into Arsenal from that left side. 3. While there is only 1 from there. From the wall you both are watching. Trust your teammate to hold there. Watch your flank. Because not just you, but your teammate as well will fall victim to it. Make the adjustments. Butler defensively will reattempt, it seems, up to the second floor. Something that, well, they won the first time, but I won't give him too big of a pat on the back for it. Let's be honest, it wasn't necessarily a round we thought would go their way for sure. But James Madison doesn't seem like they'll go for the same strategy. They're going to go for a much more standard approach with the full walkthrough. No one's repicked on over to the Montaigne. It'll be a very standard approach, more likely than not in through that breach for Arsenal, or maybe in through offices to use that exothermic charge in through that window hardball.
And notably, Butler's very happy with how that first round went, to the point where they aren't changing a dang thing about their defensive setup. They're expecting James Madison to go back to something a little bit more stock standard. You talked about not having any repicks onto what would be that same rush composition. They basically revamped their entire lineup, this time bringing that Thermite, Ashes on the board, as usually expected. Thatcher is once more alongside that Buck, but in different capacities. And then PK's going on to the Iana. From the Glaz we saw that was prepped for that post-plant scenario, this is weird for James Madison. If they walk into a similar composition but aren't expecting the exact same thing, they're going to run into a few problems, notably a few fragging out Butler Bulldogs waiting for their walk-in.
Keep in mind, you said Butler didn't change very much, if anything at all. We'll ignore that. Butler didn't change very much, if not anything at all, and one of the things they did not bring in that last round we saw here was Nitro Cells, because they weren't expecting the rushdown. James Madison, though, they don't need to worry about it in this round. They know the Nitro Cells won't be brought forward, and they know the composition line the Butler are working with, so they want to get aggressive. They like to push forward. They know they won't fall victim to a stray Nitro Cell from the 4 below. Just go for the kills. A near flawless round result at the end of the day for JMU, denied by the trade for that final kill from Raikai. And JMU will now reach match point on their map pick, with Butler scrambling to find an answer, and I'll be frank, it doesn't seem like they have one here, Dan.
No, the extent of their even early responses are, yeah, we're going to find the first 2 rounds of a half and then forget how to play Rainbow Six Siege for a small amount of time. Usually that small amount of time is about 4 rounds or so.
15 minutes.
Yeah. And James Madison, at this point, have made the adjustments once more. Naturally, that was an adjustment you expected to be made. Between round 7 and what we just saw as round 10, they completely changed their attacking lineup for Armory Archives, but the lineup they brought for round 7 was a one-time use thing where you cannot expect that to work a second time. You sometimes may never even expect it to work a first time, which obviously we saw it mostly work until a single kill was required, and then they were like, well, we don't want to win the round anyway. They figured they'd keep up appearances of dropping the first 2 rounds and then winning the rest of the half, because if that stays the same, well, James Madison's going to close things out 7-4, as they were looking to now close out Bathroom Tellers as well.
Let's recall what happened here last time down. Butler barely came out on top. One of the reasons for that was, I believe at the time it was Big Shy, sorry, taking a shot over towards Jarvis as they attempted to drop through Hatch. James Madison took a bit too long on that second floor. Nobody was on the objective directly. They were all over in towards servers instead. And because of that, it caused a lot of problem for that push through. However, looks like that'll be circumvented. No second floor approach. They're going direct into sights. JMU already putting down the diffuser, and the wonderful shots connect for Butler. Diffuser is now trapped in behind the vending machine. I don't know how Butler managed to defend that, Dan. I'll be honestly shocked. Like,
it looked like impact grenades. I think Chauncey landed them to drop the diffuser and then shoot them down because there wasn't a very easy way to actually drop them from long range. Shadows is up above, now trying to play hide and go seek with Raikai, and it looks like they're going to lose the fight. Raikai has heard the 90 cam being broken. There's also somebody sitting inside of office. That's the Solus. Chauncey now looking to swing will win the fight. They had help from behind if it was required, but there has now been a kill return. Oshi found Chauncey in the corner of office, and it's now down to a 3 versus 2. Yes, the diffuser's trapped. Barely Oshi's alive after shooting the frost mat. Good awareness from them. But James Madison need to recollect that diffuser as the SAS combo is looking to close out the map.
I've been fairly impressed with JMU's attempted return here. A lot of this has been greatly assisted purely by Butler isolating kills. You lose Gravy. Nazi's a little bit too late for the refrag back. Wasn't able to defend, but they were in an angle at which they could have defended, so they get the kill in return. And then JMU does the exact same thing where they're a bit too late to actually defend, so they get the kill in return. It's a game of refrags. And if Butler continue at this pace, they'll win. But no one's there to take back Jarvis, nigh Oshi, who's nearby. James Madison will close things up to a 2-on-2, and they've got a little bit of util, but they weren't ready for the Grismot mine. Big Shy taking down Jarvis, a 1v1 here in servers. Big Shy has the angle to work with. And Oshi is limited on HP already. This may be the most dangerous gunfight we'll see here today. Wide swung, but Big Shy holds true. Barely coming out on top. An unexpected angle of value. And Butler will somehow manage to claw back just a little bit closer, now looking for their chance to lead us into OT.
And the unexpected movement there in that fight actually wins Big Shy the round as well. Usually when you swing a corner and you look at somebody who would have been in an expected angle, you don't clear a closer, more unexpected angle. It's called an off angle for a reason. It's very not often used. But Big Shy just waits and plays patiently, knowing that Oshi had to swing. It was either to go there or go around towards square and die otherwise, to an even worse angle being played from Tellers through a wall that was soft and had a punch hole in it. Little Easter egg for you if you're looking for a Butler VOD video. But James Madison need to switch something up. They cannot rely on these dedication, oh yeah, we send it all in here. If it doesn't work, the round's basically over for us. Because it's a miracle they brought it back to what was a 2 versus 3 and a 2v2, much less what could have been a round victory.
Butler are now in their last saving graces, their last chance here. Let me say the last dance. That may be an aptly fitting term for how back and forth of a tango this matchup has been so far in Border, to tie things up 6-6 and lead us into overtime. Do Butler have what it takes? James Madison, they're going to do the same strategy they did a couple rounds prior, where they completely tore apart Butler. It's not the rush in. At least we see a Nitro Cell get brought out for Butler this time, so they have something at least to maybe catch off the plethora of players that swing in from that office's side. That's something that James Madison loved to do. But a glorious run out for Big Shy. What a play. Catching Jarvis off guard and getting them an early kill and knocking the Zofia of all things off the board means they lack a lot of utility burn. I don't think they care. They've got flashes, they've got breaching rounds, they've got an Iana. Honestly, if they had lost Oshi or Blue Key, it may have been impactful. But I think Jarvis may be one of the easier players to lose early.
Jarvis has been that third fragger, especially in the more frag-heavy roles, importantly. Big Shy has gone undroned, and instead of shooting out the drone, now they are droned and will back away, so smartly trying to play patiently, but actually almost dies off the back of it, now falling back to what was a previously held angle, but is still being held from 2 separate places. Big Shy is just playing hide and go seek. The run out doesn't work though, and Gravy takes the man advantage that was so difficultly taken by Big Shy and tosses it out the window. Sure, it does damage, but that's not something you're going to write home about.
No refrag yet. And this has been truly a game of refrag, truly a game of back and forth. I call it a tango, and maybe the best bet. We can also call it a mariachi, as looks like things are shaking up further and further. James Madison taking a huge lick of damage. PK down to maybe 20 HP, maybe 25, just barely near that margin. I think 20 more closely fitting. Butler, the same problem going in for Big Shy, sitting at about 45. Long shots are being held, and Black Mirrors are doing justice for Butler, who are very worried about those engagements, and with the fact that PK has already used all their nades, Dan, they have nothing to toss over that hard wall connecting in towards Archive. Nothing to burn but the flashes, no destructive util at range. This is going to be a near impossible recovery in towards this site. They'll just have to make a really big hole, and that's where the Nitro comes in, but it's tossed too high, and Blue Key will get off the exothermic charge.
But Blue Key's still holding this angle. The walkout, though, Jonesy getting aggressive, finding at least one kill, wants to play for a second, but won't find it. The trade back, however, is now there. Enham with one of their own with the Mark 14, but Shadows not done just yet. Raikai playing hide-and-go-seek inside a fountain, has not been droned nor noted by anybody here for the James Madison attack, but Oshi patiently waiting for the aggression to come through, noting that Raikai had to play forward, and most importantly, seeing him through what was the previously broken wall. It's James Madison just barely scraping by border in all of regulation.
They take their map pick, the Collegiate Special, for the first time this week. Will not come true, or at least be teased to come true, as it's always been the opposition taking the first map of their opposition. Finally, we see it go the other way, but unfortunately that may mean we finally get a third map. And if you're trying to go home early or maybe take a nap, that's not good for you. But as casters, we love it. We like to see as much action as possible, flex those vocal cords, and maybe flex some skill on the map itself, because Butler, where were you for over half of those? You didn't get beat by JMU, you beat yourself silly. You are not a team that is poor enough to make mistakes like that. You are much better.
And the same thing was there for James Madison as well, where in some of those rounds you were looking at and saying, did you really have to try that? 2 separate occasions of a rush plant in 2 separate sites with 2 separate compositions and significantly different circumstances? No, both of them, they lost both rounds.
No, but
they got a plant down.
Butler stole that.
But
Butler stole that round. All right.
It was a combination of Butler stealing the round and James Madison handing it over in a silver platter. I think waitstaff may be in James Madison's future because of that. But we're gonna move on to Villa. You were talking about frag-heavy maps. Talk about Italy as we move on to our second. It's Butler's map selection to try and bring this one. James Madison, a risky map finish, but a map finish nonetheless in regulation that goes their way. They take their own map 7-5 as they drop border in their favor, and they're dabbing their way onto Villa.
He's literally hitting the gritty.
You tell him, this is your fault. He said, quote, I dare you to hit the dab.
You didn't have to do it. It was just a dare,
yes,
right? I didn't put anything on it. So, to be fair, I win. We're heading on over, like you said, dabbing on over to Villa is the term I think you're used to exemplify what we're doing. Interestingly enough, we'll go with it for now. We'll ride that wave. But speaking of riding waves, maybe JMU riding the high still off that victory. And though we did have a break in between, it still takes a little bit more time than that to truly ice a team. This isn't football. Can't just call a timeout and your kicker magically misses. No, they're still warmed up. They're still staying pretty in the break. I'm sure they got aim labs up in the background or something to make sure they stay hot, because by far the best gunners on our last map of border was for sure the JMU roster.
And they were fragging out at seemingly every facet required as well. I was looking at some of the kill totals when we closed out the map, and you were looking at Shadows on double digits, Jarvis on double digits, Oshi and PK in the general vicinity as well. And that's nothing to diss Blue Key, who, in all fairness, did not do as well in KD. But the most important part of their playstyle was playing these support type roles and doing it perfectly, where you don't have to find kills. You're droning in your teammates. You're not taking as many gunfights. Yeah, he didn't find that many kills, but he didn't die in every round either. It was important play, but one that didn't turn to kills. We'll see if that changes as we move to Villa as our second map of play. James Madison now starting off on the defensive side to kick things away.
Ban phase probably expected to be somewhat normal. Mira is kind of banned a lot on Villa of all maps, of all things. Shockingly enough, that in Oregon. You really don't want to have to deal with that extension when you're holding statuary and trophy. Deal with the extension towards aviation. Ying being banned first, though, is about the only haymaker I think that could shock me. Yes, Ying is somewhat highly banned. The LMG is extremely strong, as well as having those Candelas. Second attacking pick, this one for Butler. They'll get their pick back to back. Is going to be that Jackal, the eye knock scanner. For the second time here so far in this series, so every time we've seen it will not be allowed to be played. and Butler will be quick with it for their defensive ban as well. Their map pick, kind of expected to be somewhat swift, and they'll take off Solus, which means James Madison are stuck and maybe a bit of a fickle pickle here, Dan. Do they take off the Azami and ban one of the top 4 most banned operators in R6? Or do they stay with a Mirror or Valkyrie for the information on both parts?
Honestly, if I'm then, I'd go Valkyrie. They don't need a Valkyrie. Their information is fully well and good on the defense, and they do.
Yep.
I like this decision from them for 2 separate reasons. Number one, Azami isn't a requisite ban on Villa. Doesn't get as much play in every single aspect, but is still useful, so has to be countered every so often. But the most important part of that is they don't ban the Mira. I'm going to say almost certainly because they want to play her. Mira is fairly viable, especially over towards Trophy Statuary, and yeah, Aviator games as well, but it's really down to a team. And they're also comfortable playing against the Mira. We saw even when Butler brought her, it was countered immediately, so they have no problems taking it on, nor playing it. So why ban it away if you don't have to, alongside the fact that Jarvis actually wants to play the Azami. Butler was the team that banned Azami back in map number 1, so James Madison, given the opportunity, will keep her on the board. But Butler counterbans Solus. That was their counter from map 1. James Madison counters with the Ying to start things off. Those 2 bans are my most important because both teams found significant payoffs with each of those operators, or at least the opposing team found the payoff once the recent opposite ban.
You got there in the end.
You know,
Speaking of getting there in the end, Dan, James Madison are looking to conclude things in a 2-0 fashion. After their victory on Border, starting off on the defense for a map like Villa could be the best way to put themselves and their foot in the door. But doors open both ways sometimes, even though there are literally no doors anywhere in this map, which is crazy for a floor plan. I don't think any map in R6 actually has a door. It's house. You can't open that one.
there should be like interactable doors.
There should be. I know there was a
nice
R6 spin-off game, spoof game that was, just stealing R6, right? One of those, like, Walmart brand copies.
Yeah.
Had doors. It was called Breachers or something like that, but it had doors, and you could break those open instead of just barricades. But besides the point, James Madison are defending aviation and games, planes and games, as people will call it. And they're going to have an extension in through statuary and trophy, with more specifically Blue King not in trophy, but over more specifically in towards astronomy. PK will lose their life, this player in the doorway towards master bedroom, and a long shot over towards the last remaining player, Blue Key, on that extension. Leaves James Madison with just 3.
Oh, awkward defensive setup as well for James Madison. They kind of relied a little bit too much on that defensive setup that roamed. So looking at what they have left, Oshi does find an important kill, bringing at least one back, but is now honestly stuck in this aviator corner. They have to back away, most importantly with their life. Rotera will go in and some of that utility stuck on that side. Jarvis, surprisingly, doesn't take any damage from that Rotera drone, but Impact Trick doesn't work. Selma will still go off and will find all the payoff required. Doesn't create a rotatable hole, but at least a visual one at bare minimum.
Still have another Selma. You, in fact, have 2 more Selmas you could technically use. Look at Butler, though. Despite the fact they had the man advantage very early, and there was really not a chance for James Madison to crawl back in here safely, they have somehow managed to drop every player for Butler below 100 HP. The issue is, Jarvis has no chance to rotate, and they just isolate themselves and get killed off in the process. Oshi apparently doing the same thing on the other end, and it's just Shadows now left in the 1v3. Limited HP, like I mentioned before, to work with, but still a very dangerous game in the long run. They'll spray down Raikai, plant going down behind the vault door, and there's the Azami barricade working against the attack now. The defense having to work against their own util. Shadows taking down one more. Just Jonesy left, playing on the main stairs. Shadows can tease this diffuser and maybe force Jonesy's hands. Maybe they think they're baiting it. They were, in fact. There's a spray there with the flash, and it's a perfect play for the attack. Somehow, some way, despite a tumultuous round, they will still come back and win it in the end.
Honestly, I would have loved to see the stick there as well. When it comes down to it, you still have the magnets on the side, and the flashes going off will mask some semblance of sound. If you take that fight, the delayed flashes will cut you away, and that's exactly what we saw. A combination of the flashes and the element of surprise, not expecting it to be the red side of landing rather than the 90 side of landing. And Butler's able to find an opening round again. However, we've seen this before. Butler found the first 2 rounds of both halves of Border, and yet only won one other round throughout the map. nothing terrible.
James Madison, despite losing that last round and having the ability to re-pick that last objective, the Plains in game, they're a something new. Can't dig it against them. None too different than what you'd expect to see. I don't necessarily like seeing the same objective twice. I have a big phrase for that. It breeds a level of complacency I don't think matches what R6 needs to be at in its state of play. They're going to go and do the right thing, in my opinion, move over towards trophy and statuary. Well, let's remember how Butler dismantled this defense just last round for that extension. Now, there's less utility put in play, but Butler sure as heck seem to know exactly where they need to aim for some of these crossfires to cut out some of these apex fronts that James Madison are looking to currently use. They'll have to deal with Jarvis in bathroom, they'll have to deal with Blue Key behind triple wall, and with the fact that Castle's in play, you can only assume that Oshi has placed those on those windows leading over to triple wall in the master bedroom, which makes it very difficult for Butler to clear away all that util. They may have needed to rely on an Ash or more Gone 6s to get that job done, so they've gone for a little bit of the same old, and they've also brought in the Rotero drone wielder Flores, who was left unbanned here on this map.
Wow. She's repositioned though, that's one, and PK swings off the back of it. That's a double.
Payback.
And James Madison at this point should just disengage, run away, play for other fights. You don't need these fights anymore. You don't want to give up more than Butler should have right now. Raikai is sitting in the middle of Master. I don't know what in the world Butler's doing, but drones do indeed exist. Of those, I mean, they weren't perfectly utilized, but they exist nonetheless. And Gravy's in a 1 versus 5. 4 players died in about 60 seconds or so, maybe even less. And now Gravy needs to pull off a miracle of an ace clutch. I don't know about this.
Is it possible? Sure. It's not going to happen, though. It's a flawless round result coming out for James Madison. Great shots connect through that Mark 14, like we highlighted previously. It was a solid weapon, has not received its nerve. Even offensively, it works wonderfully. That ties the score up 1-1. And to be frank, James Madison's victory looked so much clearer than the Butler side. Much better all around. Now they'll have to move to a new site. They'll go right on back to Plains and Games. Maybe try to ride through once again after that last round win. And I'll point out, I called it once the first 2 kills were netted for James Madison. It was revenge. The 2 players that were extended, PK being one of them, most of the other, they were the first to get killed off in round 1. And then they refragged back the people who killed them in round 2. Apparently, Butler has no idea how to extend safely from that veranda or south side, but they sure as heck know how to do it from the northeast. We'll have to see if it will repeat the same successes from round 1, though, but Butler will need to do a much better job of actually engaging on site with their players still being alive.
Yeah, same here. If you're Butler, go northeast attack as we've seen in rounds prior, or in the single round prior. Just take the site, because your side overtake works so well, you're expecting James Madison to do a little bit more to try and counter it. And that's exactly what we're seeing. A decent bit of utility, a decent bit of manpower as well. PK on that side, I believe Blue Key's joining them. But if you just take site now, you have what, 1-2 players in the general vicinity with a third down below? Yeah, that's it. You could take the site nearly for free if you go veranda, study balcony, maybe straight up red. Honestly, it would work a little bit better because, well, this hold on the far side could work unless you melee open the most obvious of peaks possible. PK is rightfully so removed.
Hey, at least it's a 1-for-1 trade. JMU fairly happy with the result they get at the end of it. Repel being used by Big Shy over on that astronomy window. Still a lot of pressure inside a master bathroom as well for Jarvis, who eats a flash and the eye is not so liking it. They'll be quickly rushing in behind that astronomy desk, and that is very unfortunate. Now the Rotero drone will be doomed to detonate. Jarvis will swing for 1 kill, takes down Inham, and while there is a refrag back, JMU in a much better spot than they were in round 1, Dan, where they finally put themselves in a spot where they can say we're even for the defense. The actual objective of play where we had already theoretically beaten you in terms of kills for trades in the round prior. We can do it again. Just give us the time to do so, and there is plenty of time still remaining. 90 seconds favoring JMU here for this hold.
This is another situation where a player has been seen yet isn't actually shot. Shadow's setting up the classic peek through the dress from the side, but I think it's a bait. They're going around the other side of that same dresser setup, and Gravy should be able to drone this. And yeah, obviously they will be seen. But Butler, on their attack, have to take an early fight. They can't afford to allow James Madison to just continue to play patiently. There's no kunai knives available, no Kiba barriers either for Jarvis. So that's a decent bit of utility gone. James Madison's still fairly comfortable at this point. Butler's taking a little bit too much time to go, and if they continue to do so, they're going to lose this round sooner rather than later.
45 seconds left. Jones using the last of the Rotero drones. I believe they may have one more in the back pocket, but they're quickly running out. No, indeed, it was the last as anticipated. Meaning they don't have any destructive util remaining. Do still have one Finka boost. It's enough to pick a player back up should they be DBNO'd behind Vault Door. And there are no Toxic Babes available for JMU. Meaning the actual attempts here to plant, nearly impossible to deny. And no Kiba Bear Kid as well available. Jarvis is completely out. They're placed well. And in fact, Jarvis takes a huge leak of damage, now forced to hide behind one. But there is no denying the actual push in here through Aviation. Big Shot will go ahead and go for the plant. A trade here from Study. Gravy goes down. Gets a kill. I apologize. But it's still too little too late. JMU swing the corner for Vault Door. Remove that player. Player from Study wasn't fast enough on the draw. The Wild West shootout, that is, JMU will find themselves another victory defensively.
That's an extra engagement as well there for James Madison, that they just take and then back away. The patience worked out perfectly there for the Dukes, as Butler had issues getting in. Without that obvious man advantage as we saw just a couple rounds ago, they were significantly less comfortable in those fights, and James Madison had a lot more real estate to play off of. Notably Study, which had to be cut away from a different angle. They chose Veranda, which was correct, but took too long. And off the back of time playing in their favor, James Madison was patient, played, well, patiently, and walked away with a round victory because of it. I'm now curious to see how Butler adjusts, because their attack has to be much quicker, because they got into the site, or got into the building fairly quickly, got the 2-for-2 trade quickly as well, but took, what, a calendar year to try and take the site off the back of it?
Took one while.
Yeah, just a bit.
That's not what you want to see. I think one of the reasons why Butler took so long to further capitulate their point onto the objective was because of the fact they actually lost players on the extension. They actually had losses this time around. That was something that didn't plague them in round one. They didn't have to worry about that whatsoever. It became a problem, though. They escalated the situation. JMU actually found picks. Ours actually escaped, of all things, which was also shocking in its own results. That's what JMU needed to do, and it worked. Butler, they just don't have a clean execute for Plains of Games. They don't have a clean execute to sight. Round one, they had a 2-man advantage, and it still came down to a 1v1 in a post plan. JMU, they're happy with the result, even with the loss. Just make sure you don't bleed the first two players, and maybe it'll be a different tale every round. But look at Shadows. You're a Warden. Extending away from sight. You're needed for the denial. Thankfully, no Ying, no Candelas. Your job's a little less tedious. But your loss sings dues for PK as well. Meaning it's already a 5v3, and Butler have succeeded in what they were hoping to do. The 2 kills from the extenders right off the rip.
Jarvis, though, retaking a decent bit of otherwise not held real estate. And this kill should net them a free one. They'll melee for one, look to find a follow-up, but their position is known. They need to back away, and unfortunately they cannot do so as safely as they would have thought. They're being held by the Ashe around the Ivy side, and they should be dead here. They are indeed. Good coverage. You lose one, but immediately make up for it otherwise. And Oshi's left alone in a 1 versus 4. Does damage onto Big Shy. That should be all she wrote here for the Pulse on site. No cardiac sensor for them, but they don't need it. The shots across fine too. A C4 is available should they try and deny the plant. That may go too far though. It won't. It denies the plant. 1 versus 4 for Oshi, down to a 1v1 as Gravy's left alone. They will look to fake the plant and force the Pulse into the open, and it works out. FBI damage back the other way as the backstab works, and Butler win the round.
What a very rough engagement for Butler. JMU clawing their way back. The Nitrocell to deal with one, but unfortunately, job's not done. Baiting away the plant. Honestly, JMU could have waited for time. They could have planted a diffuser. Where will that player go? Where will they escape to? They are trapped there no matter what. They are stuck in Tetris. Play to let them plant. They're gonna swing. They're gonna fake. Pros don't fake, but it's collegiate scene. We don't mind that too much. They're stuck there no matter what. Just hold the angle, jiggle peek for a wider angle over towards that laundry door in case you get swung from a fake. But Butler weren't going to do that. They were just going to swing once short, then go back for the plant, and then retreat to Memo. Once the plant goes down, you swing that wide. And you wide swing. I mean wide. You don't stop moving. You need as big of an angle as you can to catch them escaping through that Memo door. JMU, after the failure of that last round, they're extending back up here once again through to Bart, where a lot of success was found when they last defended Trophy and Statuary. The extension that Butler tried to deny fell short. And maybe Butler will rethink this, Stan. I think more likely than not, they'll just take master bedroom control as their go-to, as well as that astronomy window, and use that as a pincer point for denial. But I only see 4 players here, and there's Zafia, a.k.a. Inham, is on the other side of the map. They may be going through main.
I'm still flabbergasted about the previous round. You're gonna have to give me a second. It looks like Butler isn't stopping. What? Did you run out of time?
I believe he was running out of time.
Oh! Okay, what? Okay, can you stop flabbergasting me? I should stop with the onomatopoeia of, well, shock and awe. Insert shocked Pikachu's face here after that shot. But dropping Big Shy off the bat, that's a decent bit of roam clearance that's gone as well. James mentioned to play a little bit more comfortably. One-for-one trade, though. I don't know how in the world PK won that fight, or even to that fight, but still, they do, and still, man advantage for James Madison.
Shadows, come on, buddy. All right. It happens to everyone.
Shadows having difficulty seeing drones, players through the floor. It's been a whole series for them.
Yeah, it's been tough. Lukey, though, finding a nice pick. There's the refrag back, but Shadows finds Jonesy refrag for refrag. And once again, refrag for refrag. But JMU already got the man advantage off the first 2 picks that went wildly in their favor, meaning they have the advantage for a crossfire. They can just play for the retake, but she's off site. She's on the first floor towards dining, having to rotate through kitchen. They're nowhere near for this defense. They're going to have to quickly escape through astronomy. Huge nitro. How it did not kill, I'm amazed. But they're down to limited HP. They'll step into the Kona station, placed by the defense, that unfortunately may get healed, but it's not going to stop the SMG fire. Helleting your flank as you try to rotate back over through Trophy. Round done and dusted, and JMU will at least meet 3, going even at minimum here at halftime.
Little less shock and awe finally setting in as a round ends the way it probably should have off the opening engagement. And the MVP to that round is almost certainly Shadows, playing a little bit more patiently on that smoke. But Jarvis also setting in with the shot early and kind of playing that level of aggression that they needed on the James Madison defense, because the patience from the previous round just didn't work in their favor, at least not until the later stages where an almost 1v4 came through. But now JMU having to go back to planes and games, aviator games, rooms, and Butler has been fairly confident on this site. Granted, it's only been one for them on one occasion, but they still need to pick it up in early rounds because they know what they have to do. It's just a matter of actually getting it done.
James Madison, they have had a pretty rough go of it when it came over to the actual planes of Gabe's room hole. And did a much better job second time, yes. But a lot of that was greatly assisted by the slow ability for Butler to rotate through veranda. And that was because Jarvis denied that rotate with their life. Forced them to go for the kill. Forced them to reload, which slowed down the push through to assist the player defusing. Or, sorry, planting the diffuser is what I'll state. I'm honestly at a state of mind where Butler have all of these things in hand, because there is no other definition to this game besides refrag syndrome. There's nothing else to define how this game goes. It's kill for kill, trade for trade. The biggest denominator of success has been early picks that go untraded. Butler needs to find those. Butler needs to punish JMU on these extensions. And look at how much more passive JMU has been playing for this. PK is aware they're maybe 1 for 2 on the entry. Same thing here with Blue Key. They're not doing great. Play a little bit more passive. Play a little bit smarter. I think Big Key is almost doomed to die here, but has a great level of assistance from PK, but unfortunately PK's forced to watch that trophy window and they can't get it done. Blue Key with the Mossberg does find one. 1 for 2 is not the worst case in the world, but but an eye for an eye makes the world go blind, and James Madison need to do much more than that.
Shadows almost had an opportunity to find 2 kills there, but looked away at the worst possible time and then dies to Enham on that first shot. Now a 2v4 for James Madison on this defensive side. Not bad by any means. They could still bring this back, but less than ideal, to understate the obvious. I think Jarvis is setting up a double impact trick from below to deny a plant off of timing. Yeah, that's all they're doing. I like this decision. That's going to go to the back side of the vault door, and they're going to do it off of audio. They will completely disengage and try and play for utility and information, and this is perfect for James Madison. This is how you bring back a round where you have an obvious disadvantage.
But that means that Jarvis is going to have to not only kill the planter, but also be able to rotate back up to help Ashi in time. And Ashi's just getting aggressive. What is going on, JMU? One of the most dangerous play styles I've ever seen, but it's worked for at least to even things out. Diffuser, not collected. Left still in Hall. Over by elbow, I believe. But it means that Raikai can isolate an individual of Oshi. Jarvis now the only one remaining. Their own barricade seemingly blocking the most important POV they can get. Raikai with a wonderful shot from Study. It is all she wrote. The Selma breach paying off in the end. Meaning that you're not able to rotate. And I was worried about that idea of rotating. When Oshi was playing that aggressively, you're just not playing it together when you could have been the whole time. We'll end things at halftime, though, 3-3.
They also dedicated themselves, I think, a little bit too much to the split setup, so they should have stayed with it. Oshi should have disengaged a little bit, playing less towards aggression, more towards information, allowing Jarvis to finally activate. But as soon as Jarvis looks to back away, that's when we saw Oshi die. And unfortunate timing alongside an unfortunate gunfight off the back of a lack of information because they didn't know that the Selma was there. At least specifically Jarvis didn't. Oshi did, but it's difficult to communicate, especially in those engagements. And Butler now moved to the defensive side at a 3-3 split. If a 3-3 split was where we were at after the first half of Border, we would have seen overtime. Not the case, so we didn't. Butler now has an opportunity to, well, close things out in regulation in their own, especially because this is their own map selection. They're on the favorable side, defensive side. It is Villa most of the time. And I think most importantly, they've played with a little bit more confidence as of late. The 1v4 made things difficult. The 2v4, a little bit more chaotic. But in early rounds, they've played decisively, and it's worked in their favor.
Plans games for Butler. They knew to attack it, but they fell short a couple times. Felt like a lot of the times Butler were a little bit slow to take Veranda for a diversified angle of approach to really pincer in the defense of James Madison. Maybe James Madison realized that and will key in on it after the fact. Big Shy, though, caught off. Forced now to rotate through that astronomy elbow, through the staircase and up to that second floor, where the rest of Butler will be extended just the same. JMU are taking a very, I would say, very northeastern approach here to the point. Master Bedroom was the go-to foray. But after a couple explosivity devices, they don't like that option anymore, and they're going to play for a cutoff angle instead, held here by Shadows, who may go for a breach at entry to take a direct approach to side after droning out the hallway through main for themselves.
Madison looking to play aggressive, and I like it. Jarvis finding the opener, Junzi dead, and dropping an Azami early in a round is a lot of utility that I think a Butler were relying on playing around that they just do not have. And Shadows, there's that aggression, walking straight into sight, is currently in vault, almost able to find the second, but can't find the shot. Second attempt for it, and Gravy shuts it down. That's an important kill back for Butler to bring themselves back into this round, and they can now hold for a little bit more time, considering that chaos factor that James Madison had is now gone, as is PK on the Nook, back to a 3v3.
Keep in mind the Vulcan canisters are available for Butler to utilize. One place through that bus door would spell disaster for JMU should they fall into the final few seconds, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. It's Gravy, though, with the 416C to take Oshi off the board. Jarvis is going to rotate down through Library and maybe go all the way around through Astronomy. They're quickly running out of time. There is plenty of time to do so, but that is a good 20 seconds off your time bake if you continue to move this slow. It just doesn't spell like JMU are really ready for this decision. Jarvis finally in through landing. Will clear away as much util as they can. They need to force that Vulcan canister detonation as soon as possible, and it's already been done. Thank goodness for JMU. They're running out. They don't have any more drones to work with, Dan. Final Vulcan canister detonated in Classical Hall. Shots to be sent forward by Blue Key. Is there enough time? Rotero drone to be sent forward. Send this through the fire and the flames and get rid of that barricade that's so heavily pressured here from the Azami. Gravy's been flashed. Do they know he's behind maps? There's no drone to fully tell. One player behind bar. Blue Key, you gotta know the player's behind it. There's no chance. Vulcan canister on Toxic Babe on gun. Nothing you can do about it. It's too much for JMU to overcome as Butler will find the first half round going here into round 8.
If I've done my math correctly, that's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 35 damage a second, if not more, without the weapon. And then when you add a vector, you're looking at basic evaporation every time you even look in somebody's general direction while you're in that vicinity. Butler have an important round that they are able to stabilize off the back of. If Gravy loses that fight, it becomes a 5v3 or 5v2 with what it would have been, then Butler loses that round. They don't have sight control, they're not going to have any manpower, and then PK would have activated a few seconds later and probably found the retreating Enham, I believe it was, who found that kill back onto the Nook. Either way, it's James Madison who had a VIP taken care of, and now Butler off the back of that stabilization have a lot more confidence because they brought a 3v5 back. That's a confidence booster.
Is it enough though, Dan?
The world may never know.
How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? The world may never know, but I'll tell you how many kills it takes to get to the center of sight. More than what James Madison were capable of in that last round. Falling short in the end, Butler holding on strong of all things. And they look like a much different team when they played over to the defense. Look at the difference in extension between Butler and James Madison. Butler extended players on more than just the second floor. They didn't just put player in a trophy and a player at the bedroom door frame. They didn't just put a player in astronomy and a player at the bedroom door frame. No, they sent one in trophy, one towards landing, and one down on the first floor to knock down the attemptant through mudroom and also be able to rotate through astronomy. Multiple angles at one position that one player can hold means that Butler have more potential for kills and also more safety alongside those extenders. That was just something that JMU didn't bring, which may be indicative of the fact that this is in fact Butler's net pick and they're just much more prepped for it.
Then we'll go through good usage of the EMP and no possibility to Cade trick there as Raikai put their Electro Claw in a fairly unrecoverable position. Also playing around utility as well. James Madison can play aggressive at this point if they really want to, but they're playing a bit more patient than I think I would like to see from them. They can't afford to give away a lot of this real estate that they're gaining, nor the utility they're clearing out of position. That's a good start, at least for Butler, but a lot of their utility's gone just the same. Shadows being dead, though, again, removes that chaos factor from James Madison attack, which I think they rely on a little bit too much here on Villa.
Shadows could have been playing a buck and directly stepped in from pantry in towards kitchen and dining and clear the floorboards. That makes it so that Butler can't sit still on site. It makes it so that there's at least some level of danger. Instead, they went for the Ash breaching charges to the floorboards. Breaching rounds, I should say, sorry, the floorboards above. You die, you don't get that option, though. Gravy's been DBNO'd off screen down towards Mud, where there is at least a player in library that could rotate to pick them up. It will be big shy to do so. Enham on site. Not having any problems dealing with Jarvis, but has a couple complications when it comes to PK, who's now taken back control here of Astronomy Desk. And they're going to need Blue Key to watch their flank quickly. They may not be aware that there are two players down on the floor below, and there it is. Gravy finding Blue Key. Shot by PK, though. Climbs at least a little bit further back, but they lose their last team in Avoshi just as quickly. PK in a 1v3 does cut down Raikai, leaving them DB&O. They're aware of that. They saw the arm flail ever so higher. They may not be aware of the teammates right next to him to go for the possible pickup. They'll step into the toxic wall, shocking them surely, but PK still finds Big Shy. 18 seconds left. Diffuser is not in hand, and PK has to go for the inevitable ace if they want to clutch up this round. They'll swing the trophy door. Hiding now behind the Elk itself. Maybe behind Bookshelf could be the idea. They detonate the Vulcan canister to buy them time, but Jonesy can just go around the other end. PK, he's getting rushed on. Not enough time. Jonesy does it just fast enough, and PK will fall short.
And the unfortunate part there is you walk into the Prisma that was protecting that corner, so your whereabouts are 100% guaranteed with just a second left in the round. And when there's less time in the round than there is on your completed defuse, you're going to lose it if Butler has information. And they did. The alibi ends up being the near MVP of the round, even though PK found a 4K. Butler still finds the round victory. They're now just 2 away from sending us to Skyscraper. I can't believe it. Skyscraper maybe played in a collegiate match. I think hell is frozen over.
To be fair, we saw Skyscraper a lot at the CR6 Ohio LAN just a couple months prior.
True.
It was in the final.
But I didn't see Skyscraper yesterday, and I had a best of 5. It wasn't even in the map pool, much less in any of the played maps.
Wow. It's built different
really
here
boring
for the NACE Starleague, huh?
True.
Is it going to matter, though? It may. James Madison still has a couple rounds to climb their way back in. Butler has a tendency to take the first 2 and then to hand things over to JMU. We saw that happen both sides of our first map on Border. But Villa is, of course, a different beast, like we mentioned, and it is also Butler's map pick, so comfortability is key. But we're heading over to my favorite objective in all of R6. It is kitchen and dining. And JMU look like, composition-wise, a team that may just be taking a pantry-forward approach. Work down basement, in through pantry, and take control of kitchen as fast as possible. But I think as soon as they fall short for that idea and they see the util in play, head up to the first, head up to the second, and make sure that you can play top down, because you've brought an Ash, you brought breaching rounds, you brought hammers, and you can make an open floor plan and ruin the resale value here of this beautiful villa here in Italy.
Which is very rude, by the way. I'm sure the owners are pretty displeased with the fact that there's just a counter-terrorism operation. I mean, I suppose. C4 timing?
Outside, though.
Oh, he was outside. Wow.
Yeah.
I even thought he was inside. That feels bad. I have x-ray vision. I thought he was inside.
Not always omnipotent here in the booth, are we?
No, not always. Feels bad, man.
Wish I was omnipotent in my gameplay. Then I wouldn't be the worst rank you can be. Wood 2. Still a 5v5, though. James Madison have not given away a first pick. Infernosis rank reveal live on broadcast. But they're about to give one to themselves. Unfortunately, Jarvis is currently stuck with a goo mine in their ankle. Now forced to go the other way. Gravy with a sliver of HP, having to charge their way out of dodge. Unfortunately, not getting through unscathed. But there goes the Nomad for the side of James Madison. Big Shy with a big nitro cell. And they're doing all this with no direct pulse nitro, because he was used earlier. They're having to call things out for their team. A kill back in return. I cannot believe Gravy just got a trade despite being at a sliver.
Yeah, the reason the trade came through as well is because Gravy was hit in the body. If Gravy had any more health, he probably would have survived it and just found a kill rather than what ended up being a straight-up trade. We'll take care of the EDD. No more C4s available now for the defensive side, as the cardiac sensor-led C4 from Raikai misses, and no utilities left over here for the defensive side. James Madison have a lot of time to work with. Raikai now moves into the back stairs, but is moving to the top floor instead. And off the back of sound, I don't know if he's detected. Unfortunately, he is. She finds that kill. And James Madison now with a man advantage and health advantage as well. But Big Shy, playing hide-and-go-seek inside a laundry, finds the frag back onto Shadows. Problems now mounting for James Madison. No easy way into the site, and the problem, no information to work off of either. Oshi trying to play from up above, but sees nothing other than thin air. Laundry is where the diffuser lies, and with 15 seconds, that's also where Enham is playing in the general vicinity of. He'll look around towards Memorial, do damage onto PK, but as they walk back into Laundry, Oshi's dropping, and to their death, Enham with a clutch! Butler on to map point!
Why are you sprinting, PK? Unbind the key! You're making too much noise. You rotate too fast. 7 seconds were left, James Madison. 7 seconds remaining. Yes, you may feel stressed for time, but you have enough. You can go prone through the laundry soft wall that has been breached on the bottom side through the floor holes. You can peek there. You can slow swing that corner. Instead, your gun is at your hips and you are sprinting. No chance you're winning that gunfight. Butler will rightfully punish you and will now reach match point here on Villa. James Madison is all but guaranteed.
PK is now on the James Madison track team. In other news, PK is now on the James Madison track team.
You find a new sport, buddy. This one's not working if you're just going to sprint in and not be able to fight back, which is your role on that Iana. I also don't like the decision to drop through laundry hatch. Your teammate had just made the call out that they took shots from laundry door, from that inside little outlet, that little elbow corner, and you drop down laundry hatch, isolating diffuser, and throwing the round away. James Madison, they're making so many big mistakes, and yes, Butler makes a few small ones. But look at the difference between these mistakes. James Madison throws these rounds, and Butler's giving them so many chances, and it still doesn't matter. This is not the JMU we saw on the last map. And if they play like this on the third, which is all but guaranteed at this rate, it'll be disastrous. Oh my gosh, this Twitch drone. Also, there's no way they can get that electric claw. It's behind vault door inside games.
Yeah, they have no idea. That's a weird spot to put electric claw.
There's no way they know it's there.
I mean, it's a possibility. Sure, you have to drone it out, though, and to get that around the corner. Also, to double down, you were talking about the diffuser being put down in laundry. That was in the 3v3. That's when it was originally dropped. The teammate had to drop down laundry because it was down prior. So they were putting themselves in dire straits just to double down on dire straits. 4v4 now in this round as we'll transition. At a bare minimum, something's brought back here for Butler's defense. Next shot from Big Shy, almost finding another out towards the window, but Shadows is very far removed from the window they broke. Also, playing with the F2. Very few occasions do you see the F2 brought instead of the 417. Here's a Twitch drone going through, trying to clear out some utility. Only finds a Vulcan canister before being taken care of. They coupled that with the Dokebi call, but didn't do as much as I think they thought.
Second Twitch drone to come out. This one will kill and clear that second Vulcan canister as well as an ADS. A lot of util being burned, but you just burn your own Twitch drone. Send it over. I know you have pocket EMPs, but if Oshi dies, you're screwed. You can't breach vault wall. And every time James Madison has tried to swing in through that bus door, it has been easily cut through. You can't even go through that door. What's a key kit component here right now, Dan, that's missing for them to break that Azami barricade? The #1 counter to Azami, what's missing?
Or is this dead?
Thank you. I don't think JMU has realized that.
No, and they're taking too much time off the back of it as well. Big Shy onto a 3K. Ace possibility for them, should they be given the opportunity to grab it. Shout is being shot from two separate angles. Number one, through that broken wall, courtesy of the TCSG of Raikai. The other, from the study door. Oshi's looking to retake 90 control. Will hop on a camera just to find a whole lot of nothing and possibly damage back into their face. But here comes Big Shy, looking to aggress in and of their own right off the back of their Vulcan canister evaporating. Butler has no way of giving this up. James Madison has to play for everything, and they've been given absolutely nothing but thin air. Big Shy finds a 4K, and Butler will send us to Skyscraper.
It was just an egregious map for JMU, to be frank. They looked amazing on map 1. They looked amazing. They were the better team by far. They won every engagement that they could possibly ask for. And while it did get somewhat close, you got this. You can get back into this one. While it did get somewhere close, it just still was JMU's game. Where was that on Villa? They were not even involved in that second half. Their attack was pitiful. Their trades weren't there. Their gunfights that they were so keen and privy to in the first map were non-existent. It just was not the same JMU team, and that needs to be fixed as we head over to Skyscraper, which is a lot of one-on-one engagements, very heavy for these confrontations. You gotta get intel with the drones, which JMU are typically good about, I'll say. Villa was a little bit worse for wear, but they're typically very good about the intel. But they gotta do these kills without as much intel, which just makes things even more difficult for them.
I think Butler's on the front foot here. If I recall correctly, NACE does third map side selection off of round differential. And with map 1 ending 7-4 and map 2 ending 7-3, Butler is +1 in round differential through map 2 and 3, or map 1 and 2. So problems now, especially considering Butler's been playing around their utility to near perfection. If you can make it even better, they probably would find a way to do so. But we'll see if they can. As we move to Skyscraper, the final map of our semifinal, the winner, they go to Indy and look to compete for a grand final once more. The loser is sent home, which for Butler may very well end up being Indy either way. We'll see who takes it and who's heading to Nationals when we come back to the break. A third map is required for the first time thus far in Rainbow Six Siege playoffs in the NACE Spring 2023 playoffs. Sometime late, still joined alongside me here is Infernosis. And as we look to close out this semifinal and crown what would be our first of 2 finalists that are heading into Indianapolis on April 30th, first, we have to head to Skyscraper, one of the least played maps even now in competitive play.
One I can't say I'm necessarily excited for after JMU's performance on Villa. But let's get enough about JMU's performance on Villa and let's highlight a little bit more about Butler's highlights, right? It wasn't just JMU playing poorly. Butler did exceptionally well. Butler's attacks were a little bit, rough for wear. But their defense was spectacular. I talked about the change up for their extensions. They weren't just playing a flat extension. They had verticality for their extensions. They had fallback plans. They had rotates. Something that we never really saw come from JMU. JMU would play flats and they would play to die. When they could escape, they would, but then they just re-swing the same angle because they didn't want to change the I'll say turtling players on site. They didn't want to change the objective players in their positioning. There was just no space for them on the point. So instead, they would just say, hey, go back out there. Get more kills. It'll be fine. Just play for that instead. That's not going to work on Skyscraper. Butler will be much better prepped for this if they get their way here for the ban phase and they get to go first. I think they will.
Bans you're looking for, if you're Butler, probably something similar. They hate the Jackal, so they'll probably remove that. And they're also looking to most likely remove the Solus as well. Solus on Skyscraper, kind of a scary subject considering the information required. And surprisingly enough, for the 3rd time in a row, Butler will ban out the Jackal. James Madison should go similar to what we've seen in prior iterations. They'll probably remove information as well, but only on the defensive side. The attack should be Ying. So in order, it should go Jackal, Ying, Valkyrie, Solus for Skyscraper, which isn't abnormal, but is also a little bit more of a target towards this Butler attack. It's the same. Montaigne? What?
I don't even know. Monte is actually very viable when trying to go through Black Door.
But they are the only team that's played Montaigne thus far. Have they seen something on Butler that I haven't? There's got to be some VOD that I've missed, right? No, I'm looking at prior games. There's no shot.
All right. Quiet time. Just to soak in what has just occurred. JMU will opt to take down the Valkyrie. It's their 2nd ban. This one a lot more normal. Last defensive ban, though. This one, finally, Butler back on the board. Interestingly enough, Jackal has been banned on every map for this, which is shocking. Yeah, Jackal has a somewhat high ban rate, but never this high, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, no. It's
information, again. Damn. Solus. And Valkyrie. Same as Villa. And we know how that map went. I swear I'll stop mentioning it eventually.
It seems like you have like a grudge against the Dukes at this point.
It just when you watch a team do so well, you want to see them continue to do well. You put your hopes behind them. You get excited for them. I get invested as a caster. You gotta enjoy the work you do. And I've been left disappointed by JMU.
That's fair.
If they had lost in a close affair, I'd be like, you know what? Darn good game. But it wasn't. It was Butler having a somewhat okay half and then proceeding to go flawlessly throughout the rest. Just much better of a team.
I also have done some minor Googling over the last, minute and 10 seconds or so. And the extent of Butler's Rainbow Six Siege games have been in NACE. I don't think we've seen them in CEA. I don't recall seeing them at CR6. And the question I really pose to them, James Madison being them, is why use the ban on Montaigne? Why not try and eliminate something that's worked for Butler in rounds and maps prior that we've seen on stream and off stream? The Ying that you banned out on Villa to give yourself at least a shot at defending on the attack. Or on the Butler attack, at least. That's a curious one that I may bring up later. We'll see.
Ooh, that we will. Will it even be needed? Time will have to tell. Looks like an outside office balcony approach coming forward for James Madison. EMP goes out. The exothermic charge will come in quickly after the fact. Shadows, the Ash for the side of JMU, has already been felled early.
Oh my.
Join into that one. Big Shy finding Hill now on to PK. 1-for-1 between them and Jonesy. That is a huge stance for the entry for JMU, already off the board. Starched difference than what we had seen from them previously, where their entries were by far their best players. Now relegated to mostly util. And it's going to be a hard adjustment, a big whiplash moment for them, because that objective is not in office. They spent all this time, all this utility, and all those players dead just to get into the map.
Their fragging ability and their explosiveness is quite literally gone. They've lost a set of frag grenades, and they've lost a lot of their explosives as well.
One shield for another.
This is a problem, and this is just going to be a rinse and repeat. There's one Rotero drone left, and it's going to be used over towards drum. It'll probably clear out, what, that bulletproof shield, assuming they drop it? Can they get it out? No.
Did we get it?
This round's over. James Madison has flashbangs, a couple breach charges, an EMP or two, an exothermic charge. If they don't find straight up gunfights in the next, I don't know, I'm going to say 10 seconds, this round should be over.
The reason why we're seeing so much Ash from JMU, I believe, is because they're worried about these zombie barricades. They're worried about the keeper barricade. You wouldn't need to worry about bringing in Ash if you had just banned a zombie. Would not have been a concern. Instead, they're more concerned about information, which, to be fair, is also a big factor. But I would say Solus would be higher priority, at least in my opinion, on a map like this, over that Valkyrie, but you still go the other way. Gravy taking down Jarvis over near Drum. Removes them quickly from that little study side. Lukey's in Dragon and looking for a refrag back over to the Drum player. Will step in through Terrace and maybe goes for it, but falls victim to the greatest blender of all time. It's not the real alibi. Peekaboo. What's the Apex Legend term? Bamboozled, I think is what is said when you fall for the decoys. Rough way to go about it. A good round for Butler, though, nonetheless.
Butler, as well, smartly disengaged from a lot of those fights. As soon as the overwhelming pressure came up through Shrine, drone was thrown past the eyes of Big Shy, who just backed away. There was no need to take some of those fights. James Madison just straight up did not have the utility nor the information gain to try and take the site if they didn't find those kills. So as soon as James Madison finds one kill in Shrine, the Bulldogs are like, everybody run away. This is no longer a first-person shooter. It is a game of Five Nights at Freddy's. And that's exactly what happened. As soon as you shoot what you think is indeed Freddy, Freddy himself, or Brady,
the man down the slaughter,
will swing and drop you. This is a problem for James Madison. If they continue to rely on singular option fights tactics, which we've seen in a couple of these attacking rounds between maps, and it's just not an option anymore, I don't think they can put together a decent attacking half of Skyscraper, especially with Butler overwhelmingly having utility in late rounds to use. This may not be one of those rounds, considering the extent of late round utility they may have. There's a C4 and Big Shy on the Azami, but oh no. Tech issues.
Round has started.
I think you can call it the first 30. I haven't read the NACE rulebook in a while.
Well, that is true. I don't know the NACE rulebook. But James Madison, if they're wrong here, they could have just had a 4v5. Yeah, but it was not called in prep, Shadows. That would be the issue.
Yeah.
If James Madison is wrong, then it's a costly endeavor. Seemingly, we're just waiting things out till we have confirmation.
This is weird. I'm
we have it on
looking at the rulebook myself.
You can always look. All right, Dan will look it up. I am completely clueless when it comes to the NACE rulebook. I've been brought on for these playoffs.
Part 6. I don't see anything. I see eligibility, board of directors, completion. This all seems like not the rulebook. Okay. That's a Ubisoft rulebook. It seems the global rulebook says prep phase or round if no damage and called within the first 30. So, for the time being, it looks like we may go to a tech pause because we need to figure out what the game is going with. It's entirely possible we come back and it's 2-0. It's also entirely possible we come back and it's 1-0 here for Butler. I'm going to get some confirmation from our production staff just to make sure we can send things away before trying to move on. But for the time being, it does indeed look like we're going to send things to a very quick break while we sort out our technical issues on the back end. And when we come back, we'll see if it is 1-0 for Butler or if it's a second required. apologies for that.
Hi. Dan, you had a little moment right there.
Some tech issues on this one. We'll send it to a break. When we come back,
Let
we'll
her
figure
break.
out what's wrong.
Let her a break. It'll be fine, everybody. Stay tuned. We'll see if this one ends in 2-0 for something's going on. We'll be back.
So, our rulebook problem has been solved. According to the Ubisoft Global Rulebook, you can call a rehost in prep phase under any condition, or into the action phase, assuming it is the first 30 seconds and no damage has been taken. All of those conditions were met. James Madison's rehost request was indeed correct. So, we restart 1-0. But, because attacker repick exists, Butler is not locked into their previous composition setup, and they can do as they please. They do basically pick the exact same things, but they had the option to switch should they want. James Madison, luckily, will not have a extra issue on top of their technical problem, and we restart 1-0. Apologies again for the technical delays, but I'm happy we got things sorted.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. Glad to have all that information so cleanly brought forward. Butler, I'm sure, were a little upset at the beginning, right? We'll have to have JMU go a little slap on the wrist for leaving too quickly before the rules can be, all organized and underway. But they are technically
honestly,
right.
In all fairness, it wouldn't have been solved in the first 30 seconds.
I agree as well. I also agree with you. But still precedent. Yes. We'll have to revamp the rules here since we only do our 6 in the playoffs on broadcast. Be a little finicky to have rules specifically for it. We'll have to revamp that. Either way, 30 seconds into the round, JMU, no timeouts to be called now. No rehosts here. No chance left. And speaking of no chances, JMU's PK gets an early chance and gives no chance over to Jonesy, who had typically found the first frag in that last round. Now will be denied of it here in this one.
Problem now for Butler, losing that bandit off the board means no possibility of the bandit trick. And also, with that kind of softball setup, I don't think they were even trying it, but either way, it's James Madison having a pretty decent opener. They'll also take care of the bulletproof camera that's put on the wall, so a lack of information now for Butler as well. They're falling back to very little. ADSs are available, Vulcan canisters sure, a C4 for Big Shy, but Enham playing on that Warden with Ying available, that's where James Madison could very well be cut away if they fall into that false sense of security.
How many maps could you swing a hammer at the roof and connect here, Dan? PK's found a nice angle to do so down in bedroom. Jump up on the bed. Don't typically jump on it. Your parents will get very angry with you. But if you hop up on the bed and swing the hammer skyward, you can, in fact, connect. Still only one blood has been spilled so far here on this round. It looks like maybe JMU have given the chance to go a little bit further, a little bit above and beyond, some would say. Vulcan canister is detonated after that exothermic breach finally goes forward and gives that JMU side access to the objective. Look at the drone work they're still having to work forward here with. Try to gather as much intel as possible. Candela sent out Jarvis, removing those retinas of the defense, and that gives Blue Key the space to go for the plant. They're going to get this one down because Butler are getting torn apart at the seams. A post plant with 2 players alone left remaining against 5.
Problem, especially for Butler, is losing Enham as they were trying to flex. It was an extra angle held by James Madison that allowed them for that cutoff of the Warden, and now they're looking for a flawless round with a plant. Not many times do you see it. This will be one of those times. James Madison take the fortuitous change in the rulebook and now turn it into a round victory. I'm pretty sure they're a little lucky on the back of that one.
Maybe the extra time during that break gave him a little bit of edge, and that probably was enough time to actually ice out Butler after their, map 2 victory and the very solid map 1 performance they had brought under their belt. We're going to head over towards Exhibition and Office, though, as our third objective of choice. Kind of not really. It's still our second, but third round objective of choice, really, for Butler. James Madison picking up first blood onto Jonesy. That was a really rough go about it for them in that round. They can keep Jonesy alive as long as possible. That puts them in a much better spot, especially this round when you're trying to bandit trick down that wall. The only option they have is to EMP it, and they're only really bringing pocket EMPs for these rounds. It's a lot easier to bandit trick that because it will come back a little bit faster. There's a little bit of a fallback if they mess up the timing with that exothermic charge placement.
James Madison didn't, and now, as they will move back to attacking Exhibition Office, will bring a fairly similar setup. However, one main change for them is a Hibana in, Thatcher out, and Dokebi in just the same. I'm not honestly a fan of this setup now for James Madison. They said it broke a first round. Why change something if it worked out pretty well for you in rounds prior? Jarvis not going onto the Ying, which was basically the staple of them getting into the site, and we're going to Thatcher, I mean, maybe, but it depends on the Butler setup around those bandit batteries.
If they fall into more difficulties dealing with the bandit batteries, the EMP that they toss for the pocket there of Oshi means that they can have double hard breach, which means they won't be able to completely bandit trick both walls. They'll only be able to do one. It means it's theoretically impossible for Jonesy to be able to bandit trick the wall effectively, 100% at the very least. And when that happens, no matter how small or big that breach happens to be, a nade tossed through that hole, even if it's just a couple pellets wide from Jarvis's Hibana pellet, it'll be enough to get a nade in there and destroy the bandit batteries with that. Yeah, but that's why you place an ADS there. That's why you place an ADS just close enough to eat it all up and gobble it up effectively. In through Black Door, it's PK. First blood netted there against Inham and the Warden. That extension they made from Dragon and Shrine all the way over there towards that break. For T, falls short. And Butler once again will put themselves in a man disadvantaged position, and look at all the util that's already being burned. PK will throw their last nade, and that will finally clear shield.
ADSs are not cleared though, so they still have to worry about those if they want to continue up with utility. PK now looking aggressive, help from Shadows on the other side of Shrine as well, so forcing back this Butler defense, and in fairly decent time, but could certainly be better if you're on this James Madison attack. So Butler, now knowing that, could back away. Now starting to play off of time rather than the man disadvantage they've been put in. They're still in a decent spot in the round as a whole, but are still looking for frags just the same.
Rakai forced to make a hasty retreat back behind bar within loud. One of the last bandit batteries in play, two were placed on that outside wall in office. One's placed over on that connector wall towards that elbow outside balcony. Let's keep in mind that James Madison don't have a great way to clear that shield besides the breach round in the pocket of Shadows. It's another reason why we're seeing them bring the Ash over anything else. Despite there being no Azami here in this round as well, might I add. Blue King, connecting shot towards Gravy. PK, though, will be felled by Big Chai, sorry. They'll go for another one as well, but unfortunately, Blue Chai just can't get that secondary kill off towards Shadows, and they'll get refragged back in return. But at least they've crawled their way back into at least a one-man deficit instead of a disparaging two.
One difference, though. This is a weird spot for James Madison, just walking in. Jonzi left alone. Has a C4 in time on their side, but no. Oshi will find a double. SMG-12 and the Mark 14 to follow up. James Madison was put through the ringer with time, but played it a lot more calmly than we've seen so in prior rounds. And now going 2 for 2 on Exhibition Office, Butler's going back to Karaoke and T. It looked pretty good for them, but they need to try and replicate, especially after James Madison seemingly found new life.
Is JMU's new life going to be enough to continue on with the string of these rounds? Time will have to tell. We're going to head over to Karaoke and Tea Room. Butler loved the extension over to this side of the map. But JMU have at least already shown that they can, in fact, breach through Black Door and take control of that hall. T Hall is a very dangerous hall to work from. Maybe JMU still go for the longer approach, working east to west instead of just going fairly direct on west side. But the fact of the matter is, there are windows directly in objective. There are repels that can hold cutoff angles. There are multiple anticipated entries towards behind drum, as well as in towards the archive side. It's so many variable options available for JMU, they truly can change up their approach. And one of the reasons why we saw JMU struggle in round 1 was because Butler, off the back of Jonesy, and I believe Ryker, maybe had been Big Shy at the time, they found 2 picks, burying Jarvis and Shadows, or I won't say them, burying their 2 entries, I believe at the time was PK and Oshi, and making it impossible for JMU to have much success, bar the utility that was in their back pocket, which was already limited after their breach through that exothermic wall they did in offense.
We've seen rush setups from James Madison before, none of which, including both in Amaru, and a blitz. Actually, neither of the two operators, much less them combined. I'm not sure what James Madison's trying to set up here, considering you'd expect them to try and go in the first little bit of the round, but now noting the fact that there are multiple players in the site itself, they may not have the opportunity to do so. Jarvis finding the opening kill, though, may open that opportunity around towards the black stairs as well. There goes the blitz, walking straight in, hit by their own teammates' explosive mine from the lifeline, but it may not matter. Jonesy sends PK leaping for death as they fall in the entranceway to T. Still seeing the blitz on the backside of the black stairs, having the information but not the actionable intel they can do anything with. There's so much real estate for James Madison to now work off of. They still have to worry about long angles being held, but they have enough to work to turn it into kills. Jarvis finds another from that rappel, and JMU having many issues of which I don't think they found a solution for just yet.
Keep in mind, JMU's ability to take control, like I said, through that black door has warranted them a lot of success. Gravy was heard from the Dokubi call, and still Shadows sprints past them. Entertaining, but the wrong idea for sure. Blue Key, a little slow on the shot over towards Jonesy, but will still find the kill in the end. Gravy left in the 1v3, and yes, Oshi is quite low, but there's a giant shield in their face. It may not matter, and it really won't. That AK from long range gets really high success for the second time, at least here in this round, and JMU will continue the slaughter. Huge play for them. That's 3 in a row, and Butler a much needed timeout. They really did not like what they've been seeing and feeling against this JMU roster.
All I'm saying, though, is this is probably the best decision for Butler. Last time we saw them call a timeout, it was off the back of, again, James Madison finding 3 rounds in a row. If you'll remember, that was when we were 3-2, with James Madison winning back on Villa. After that timeout, Butler decided they didn't want to play Villa anymore, so they just casually won 5 straight rounds. 1 back in the first half, the remaining 4 in the second to close out the map. If they can replicate here, they're looking at 6-3, which, again, is a scoreline we've seen prior, and dominance over James Madison. I like the decision to call a timeout sooner rather than later as well. At least make up for lost time while you can, before the map is already a foregone conclusion.
They've already seen all 3 objectives that JMU will bring to the table. Or, sorry, that Butler will bring to the table, right? They've played all 3. So they've seen variable strategies for the first, the last point we just were at for T in exhibition, but they've also seen multiple strategies for the other one. They can start to rebuild their defense to slightly counter James Madison. But the issue is attacker repick. The ability for attackers to change their operator throughout the entire prep phase makes it so much easier for attacking teams, which is why once that update came through, attacking disparity for round wins was increased by a pretty large margin, all things considered in the grand scheme of R6. It makes it very difficult for any defensive team to truly counteract. They would need to deny a ton of information here in the drone phase. And that's just not available to them because guess who got banned by Butler on their defensive side? It was Solar, the best op to destroy the drones before they find any intel. It just seems like it shoots themselves in the foot. This one, incident couldn't really help that. You were going to ban Solus no matter what. But I don't think Butler anticipated that James Madison would find such a solid start here on this map after a rough round 1. Just an unexpected affair. But they gotta adapt. Man, they cannot keep making the same mistake.
James Madison also continues to look as clean as they have, more decisive than anything, and confident in their playstyle. Then that's also a scary subject for Butler, because a lot of what they found on Villa was off the back of, yes, their own team play, but James Madison made a few mistakes here and there that Butler was able to take control of. Notably the 1v4, where you got a little over-aggressive in a big plant, the 2v4, where the over-aggression came through from both Oshi and Jarvis in the possible brought back when it was already 2v2. You're looking at Butler and saying, he won 7-3, but 2 of those rounds were rounds in which James Madison certainly had a shot at, and I'm not going to say hand it to you because that's just objectively untrue, but certainly gave you a significantly better shot at than you should have had otherwise.
Exothermic Breach finally going down here on that office wall. Looks like James Madison will repeat the same attacking strategy they made in round 1. That did lose them that round. But like I said, a lot of that was greatly assisted by the 2 picks that Butler stole early in that round in the first 30 seconds. Really catching 2 players, the entries for James Madison off guard, leaving just support and utility players at bay. But let's also remind ourselves that Butler on map 2 for Villa was a refrag heavy team. They would punish extenders, and they would refrag kills when they would lose them. Where has the refragging been? Where has that potential been? It's been non-existent for Butler. And I think that's another reason why we're seeing him struggle. Shield's still in play in Shrine, right outside of Dragon. Maybe a Reterror drone to go that way. Breaching round is also available. It just makes it so that there is a fallback plan, and with the Azami up, there's even more options to clear. 2 extra. Gotta clear 2 shields, gotta clear 2 Azami barricades. But that means you can't fail to clear the shield. Remember the biggest problem that James Madison had? It was the shield in drum and the player in drum of Big Shy, who had found 3 kills in that round and is already back up to that 3 margin since the reho.
They're on the corner here for PK. They want to swing off the back of it. Johnsy's stuck in this corner. I'm not sure if this is going to be cleared. PK played a staring contest with the Warden, and nobody shot each other. Because why would they? This is a first-person shooter, maybe now a first-person looker, if I do say so myself. But Butler, still confident, and their playstyle leads that way. That timeout was all important. They set time aside for themselves to adjust, and most importantly, the utility in their favor. Butler looking clean as ever with a flawless round post-timeouts. James Madison are torn limb from limb with utility and just straight-up gunfire.
JMU needed to not step back into the same strategy they attempted in round 1. Drum and Shrine hold were way too strong for Butler and have been consistently. Butler shows that they don't just win when they have the man advantage from the early 2 picks. They can win when they are on an even 5-on-5. Big Shy has been insurmountable for their success on that hold. The issue may just be Big Shy is not necessarily there for the rest of it. 3 kills in round 1 for that defense. 3 kills in that round for the defense as well. Now they're going to head back over to the office side where James Madison tend to pick them apart at the seams. This could be a 4-2 half if JMU continue to get their way with this one because Butler hasn't found an answer to this attack. We highlighted the timeout. Maybe it was being enough. Maybe it was just a change of strategy from JMU that gave Butler the chance. This will decide if the timeout was as impactful as we hope it would be.
I'm also looking at the setup here for Butler and saying not much, in all fairness, has really changed for them. I mean, yeah, they're going back to Exhibition Office, which we've seen prior. Nothing new there. But I think the most important part is the extent of what they're changing on their defensive side is Big Shy is going from the Vulcan canister wielding Goyo to the magnet wielding Wamai, from utility usage to utility denial, and honestly, I don't think it's needed. Not a whole lot of utility was used in the last round that James Madison won here on Exhibition Office. They brought in Habana, they brought in, well, the Thatcher previously, but now that they're going on to the Ying and Thatcher setup, I'd say, even without knowing it, Butler has brought in a better improvement than, honestly, what they may have originally thought.
Breach already going down on that office wall. JMU's made quick work of it. Only took them 45 seconds, really 40 seconds. I'll cone it down just a little bit further to make it even easier for them statistically. Highlight them a little bit more. I did dig on them quite a lot in between map 2 and this third one here. They make quick work of that wall, and that gives them a huge foothold to work from. Raikai holding behind their shield and the bar itself within lounge. Big Shy. An exhibition behind the bomb chassis, and, well, there goes the flashes, and the Candelas will not be far behind. A repeat of strategy. Raikai is looking to deny that. Let's remember that the plant came down on that secondary reinforced wall when it happened last. The fact that that wall's been left open and they reinforced only the first means that there's a much better chance for Butler to go for the kill. They do succeed in doing so. Raikai has to extend for it. Jonesy, though, and Big Shy finding huge pickups, and Butler have found the biggest answer imaginable to deny themselves of an unfortunate plant on their site. And a gorgeous defense, all because they changed one reinforcement. One reinforcement's position saved them that round.
As the smallest of adjustments pay off in the biggest of dividends. Take an inch, you may even be given a mile. And Butler's very happy about it. That round, again, makes it 3-3. James Madison could not close things out in the later stages, even after stringing 3 consecutive rounds together. Butler finds the all-important response, and at halftime no less. The switch now to the attacking side, most of the time doesn't favor them. But their defense looked good enough, especially on Skyscraper, which can be such a back-and-forth map with no clear favorite on either side. The momentum may very well turn things around. James Madison, however, in that same conversation may not be as confident on their defense. So no guarantees by any means, but Butler at a bare minimum have brought it back to 3-3 and gave themselves the best possible shot in the later stages of the half to make this a better attempt.
Can Butler repeat the successes they previously had? It's really a question with no answer until it actually can go down into the action. Thankfully, that electric claw will connect. All of them set in stone. Cade was left unbanned to this point, and I'll throw out something that Butler are bringing that is a little bit shocking to see. The Amaru with the Garu hook. And interestingly enough, on top of having the Garu hook, they have pocket hard breaches, which means the Garu hook is literally only there to get them up onto the balcony. Jonesy caught off, hard breach gone. Thankfully, they brought three different sets of hard breach, interestingly enough. But it will allow for Big Shy, who swung in from that upstairs hall down to the first towards kitchen to refrag against Shadows after that run out. And the 2 exothermics have already been placed by Raikai, who's looking to make apparently a really big hole. And it's detonating here on the other side of the map.
This finds the opener, but look at the setup now, especially for James Madison on the defensive side. They've flexed back, and the patience is weird. You're talking about the pincer. I'm a little curious to see how Butler try to set up that pincer, because James Madison's just playing a little bit more patient than honestly you were expecting. There's PK, dropped. There was PK, let me correct myself. But I think there's still Jarvis sitting inside a drum who may go uncleared because they've made no sound cues. The extent of what they found is a kill early in the round, but it's certainly expected to see Butler fall away from that without having to drone it. And, well, they drop Big Shy on the James Madison side, so they keep them at advantage. But, oh, they're looking for another. Raikai dead. Oh. This may very well be where they activate. Now it's Oshi with a double. Trying something different, Enham is taken care of, and that's a round back here for the James Madison defense.
What an interesting attempt by Butler. Butler breach open the wall right there on that balcony, right next to stairwell. They breach open the office wall, and then they send 2 players on the eastern side of the map. There was a west and east push. They were trying to trap James Madison within their own objective. The issue was, James Madison was playing a north and south defense, meaning the western to east extension was hardly there. And even when it was there, they were sticking more towards drum, or sticking more towards the northern staircase, all the way over towards the breach they opened on balcony near officer. It was a really solid idea for Butler. I love the attempt to justify. I love the attempt of diversifying their attack the same way they did on the defense with their extenders in a different play style than James Madison had done. But doing it on the attack, you're relying on kills. You're relying on limited players for refrags, which is Butler's speciality. And because of that, you're finding yourself falling victim to shields, to util, and to off angles. Because you don't have as many players there to drone out for you, because you only have 2 players there and they need to be swinging together, meaning there's no drone in front. It's the rightish idea, but it also is the wrong idea, because James Madison have just the advantage.
Okay, are they setting up a run out here? I think they already have prepped it, as they want to run out of that shrine window. That'll be around towards the balcony should they gain information. Watch for that run out on the Azami. If they go out and find a kill, that's a problem that may not be recovered. Ace may very well rotate up that side as well should they try the repel. But James Madison know how they want to set up. You can see the entire soft wall for office as well. This is weird for Butler, having to deal with many different aspects of a defense for James Madison in which they haven't seen. Even though this is a karaoke and T hold, it still seems like they want to defend exhibition office with all they have.
Dojo's been breached. Butler are once again creating multiple angles to work from. Does not seem like Shrine Window will in fact be run out upon by James Madison. It doesn't mean that Blue K holding once again inside drums can't find and connect for a kill. Jarvis locking down that black door. That's what you need to see if you are on the James Madison side. You have to expect that Butler will use it one way or another. That Shamika launcher is going to be pivotal to your success, but unfortunately, the last one doesn't go out far enough, but you can at least get a little bit of assistance and reinforce yourself out for a hasty retreat. You just can't escape from there, because if you try to leap over that edge, you'll get shot in the process. Big Shy finding a kill, refrag back JMU, giving Butler a bit of their own medicine here, Dan, that may just be enough here as we enter into the last 70 to 80 seconds to give a bit of leeway to JMU and say that they have a good dominant straight to work from.
Maybe clearing out that barricade set up by the kunai knife, but an odd setup still for James Madison. That advantage that they're playing off of, it's still being pincered. And learning is the Butler attack, but maybe a little too late, as Blue Key cannot play as patiently as they want to. Oshi has their support from behind, but Raikai walks in from that far side and finds a double at that. Sure, one trade is found from Blue Key before they fall, but Butler have now brought it back to dead even. They still have to contend with Jarvis's Shamika launchers, but they've made it significantly more likely than it was just 25 seconds ago.
An amazing attempt for Butler there. Initially thinking it was just two. One from that westernmost window. Northernmost window. Oh, it was west. I am correct here. One from the westernmost window, one from the initial side reaching in through Dojo. But there's a third coming behind from Lounge. And that's what caught them off guard. JMU fall victim to it because of it. The red time is now officially ticking. And there are too many angles being held at once. Inham has to find one more, has already taken down PK. Needs to rush into side, and apparently Tachanka is quite sneaky. Hiding away. Not even behind the bomb chassis itself, just on a chair. And apparently the colors throw them off. And it leads to a JMU round win as they are one away from match point and series point. The scoreline being 5-3.
I have a fun fact for you as well. James Madison would be the second Virginia team in the grand finals. Granted, not this specific grand finals. Davenport from Chicago is awaiting them after dropping down Kettering. But the Open Premier Grand Finals have been decided, at least the two teams that are contending there. It's University of Virginia's Esports Association, aka Vespa, taking on Fisher Rainbow Six. So Beezer will be in another Open Final, seeing if he can win it this time.
I'm honestly amazed Kettering lost. Honestly, I'm amazed they lost 2-0. Yeah, especially
7-1,
they actually had a rough time yesterday. They had a rough yesterday, so maybe I'm a little less surprised. That was a game that was close, and it probably shouldn't have been.
This game wasn't close, and it should have been.
No, this game is... Oh, you're talking about Kettering's second game today?
Yeah.
Probably, yes. It should have been close, and it wasn't. This game... it's split 50-50. I'm honestly not surprised it went to map 3 and it's still close. It is a 2-round buffer still in favor there for JMU. Blue Key really making sure that you cannot step in through that door or that window. 3 EDDs placed. You're gonna die. You go through there. Thankfully, hackers have this little known thing known as a drone that they can in fact use. Most of the time they try to use it. And it helps them out greatly.
It's also one of the first times we're seeing a tertiary site required, because we hadn't seen Kitchen Barbecue prior. James Madison, on this defensive half, are bringing in something different just the same. I'm a little surprised there's a bandit on the board considering the site selection, but honestly, if you're holding as far away as you are, it's still understandable. The Eagle does miss drones, so still information gain here for the Butler attack, but James Madison's still holding the real estate they want to hold on to. And all in all, they could be happy with how they've held. Even if they lose a pick on the top floor, already a minute and change gone, a decent-ish bit of utility removed from Butler, and time off the board as well. Sure, you can gain info as much as you please, but if you can't find kills off the back of it, what are you doing with your drones?
One player spotted in makeup. Butler are still kind of at a loss about how they want to engage here. It's really just praying that your pre-fires are going to work, and you can kind of cut a player down before they can cut you, but it just has them in the case. Shadows swings to find Jonesy. Swings back the other way. Takes down Big Shot. Inham is kind of trapped in the entrance towards Drums, and there goes Shadows striking for a third. Hunting for more. Keep a barricade just barely not enough to close out that entrance, but PK has the able to lock down, can cover Shadows, but not fast enough. Inham will get the upper end on their opposing player who had already taken down 3 in the afterlife. There's just not enough time to. Gravy and Inham are running out of util, active util that can be used. In fact, Thatcher's entire kit is entirely useless for the breaching round. Or charges, I apologize. And it won't even matter. PK snuffs their life short. Blows out the flame of their soul. and leaves just Gravy in the 1v4. Diffuser, opposing side of T-Room's exit. And this isn't even the objective. They're still on the second, squandering their chances. JMU will now reach match point, series point here to possibly move on to the finals after this next round.
Butler need 3 straight round victories on any site they can find. But the problem is James Madison on this defense has gone flawless thus far. They have not lost a defensive round. I'm getting reminiscences of our second map of Villa, where Butler just walked all over JMU in the second half. And that's just the case here, but Butler seemingly hasn't set up an attacking round since, forever and a day ago? It's been a problem for them. And finding early trades, sure, you can find a kill here and there, but they're relying way too much on the information that they're gaining, but they're not turning it into kills. They're throwing away their drones so that when they can finally try and find those kills, they don't have the information gathering tools they require. And most importantly, their utility's being removed faster than they can use it to any effect whatsoever, much less to try to find kills off the back of it.
I think this is a very smart decision by JMU, and it all started from the pick and ban phase for map selection. JMU gets to go first, gives them a huge advantage. They'll take Chalet, and for their second, they take off Theme. Bank and Oregon will follow. JMU gets to pick Border. They do exceptionally well on that map. They get to play on Villa, which they do terrible at. We won't sugarcoat it as best we can. I don't think that hits the second.
I don't think it does either. Oh, no, it
barely
does.
Wow,
That's
what a tiny
pixel? Okay.
Ban followed up for JMU, though, for our default map. It's Club. The 3 maps remaining are Club, Cafe, and here Skyscraper. Knock off the easier map. Knock off one of those maps that we highlight as the good team killer. The one that makes good teams struggle, or good teams go to die, the phrase we'll use. Clubhouse and Oregon are the maps that are typically considered that. Your T3 special. That forces either Cafe and Skyscraper, and I think JMU would have played just well on Cafe as well, but I think they realized that Butler was going to ban that. Leaving only Skyscraper. You gave them 2 options, 2 terrible options. They're going to have to pick the worst of the 2. They wanted Clubhouse, and you banned it. It was a smart decision. And James Madison are riding that. Already getting a kill. Unfortunately, fragged back. Shadows goes down. But that's a lot of information, and you took down the Finka. No boost on the board, no gone 6.
Still a 1-for-1 trade overall, though, and dropping away the alibi, that's Shadows, who's been interrupting a lot of these tried and true flex plays from Butler. Jarvis has opened up the drum, so the drum room is more of a hollow room at the best. Jarvis, on this shot as well, has been seen. I believe that drone at least seeing Jarvis as they back away, but they are forced away. And Butler and this attacker still looking comfortable. They're taking room, but they still need to take these kills. With Big Shy off the board, that help with health is no longer available.
Gone 6 goes out.
He's lucky.
Another one in the back pocket, apparently. Butler plenty happy with that. Rockeye even nets a kill for Butler. That one onto PK, who just couldn't make that hasty retreat fast enough, it seems. Damn. 60 seconds left, and James Madison are 1 round away, 1 win away from moving on, and I mean physically having to move, unlike gamers tend to do, into the finals for the LAN event. But it's all up to Jarvis. As Oshi gets DB&O'd and finished off by Gravy. Gravy takes it all into their own hands. Nearly 3 kills alone in the final kill cam. Only 2 to conclude. And it will be a very hard-fought victory for Butler, who will take that one in stride and now attempt to keep at it. Their first attacking round win, though, for that half.
Honestly, if you're James Madison here, I don't know if going T karaoke is the best decision. I'd go back to Exhibition Office because T and Karaoke was a scary round. I don't know if anybody who's watching remembers, but the TLDR about it is Butler found a lot of real estate early, brought it down to a 2v2, and the only reason they lost is because they took too much time. Butler has been learning, not only in this map, but in this series as a whole. If they take anything from that 8th round, of this map to heart, it should be that there is less time in the round than they originally perceived. And if they go quicker, and as well as we've seen prior, that's a scary subject for James Madison's defense, who was set up to rely on utility, but really just relied on the clock and only barely won it off the back of it.
I don't know if I agree or disagree. I think T is probably one of the better points for James Madison. You know, it did come down to a 1v1, but it was also a 2v1. can't give too much thought against that fight. It's just a question about how Butler are going to decide to push this. The fact they're bringing in Ying, the fact they have that Ashe still, maybe spells an indicative scenario of which they maybe want to take Black. They want to swing through that door and take control over towards that karaoke hall. But the problem will lie that it doesn't seem like Butler are actually engaging there. They will meet the extension of JMU all the way from offices. Oshi may be in a bit of a tough spot, but they may just be playing to die for the bandit trick, which could work. But the second Butler change up the angles of which they attack, such as through dojo and makeup room wall, that puts a big dire spot on James Madison, who will be cut off of their rotate and retreat. What's happening? Look at the two players on the outside balcony down. Butler have the rotate cut off. JMU's two players in the extension, they're playing to die. And that may be exactly what happens. It's going to be really tough for them to escape here alive.
I'd honestly like to see them not run away, though. If they could just proactively take these fights and bleed time away from the Butler attack, you're looking at a better option. There will not be a bandit trick. There's not enough time for Oshi to get that down, but also, they've also had an opportunity to back away with their life. They have to worry about that second window, and they will, but to their demise. Gravy has found the opener. Butler are looking to continue to stay alive, and at least one kill has given them the benefit to do so. It's just a matter of closing out the round now that you found the opening kill, and most importantly, the real estate on the entire east side of the map.
Shadows has been spotted by a drone. Will melee it. That's how close it got. Blue Key, their position here is unbelievably important. The Shamika launchers will at least buy them a bit of time. 70 seconds still ticking. JMU at the man disadvantage. Candela's ready to be sung through that dojo window. They'll follow through quickly behind it. Nobody in makeup. Still a player holding atop a staircase. What? Jarvis, stop running! JMU once again falling victim to their own circumstance. Enham takes down Blue Key, takes a huge bit of damage in the process, though. It is PK to find a frag back, but still sitting all the way towards Black Door. They will still have to be careful of the fact that that is an easily known pixel, and now they're the last player left standing with Shadow falling to the Ying of Big Shot. Floorboards working for PK. Player all the way in Hall. PK, slow swing. Another small clinical error coming out for JMU, and it seems like that's some of the only mistakes they make is clinical issues, and it's just relying on Butler to get those gunfights, and they do.
Most importantly, Butler realizing they can take control of James Madison when they are caught out of position. Sometimes it's just down to timing, and Butler has gained timing control, sure, but they have made sure that they are set up well for these gunfights. The final resting place, possibly, of JMU or Butler, whether it's in regulation or in the NACE playoffs, is going to be T and Karaoke. And again, they're going back to this, but last time around, it just straight up didn't work. Now here for JMU, they are completely overhauling their defensive setup. I'll give you the trades and operators down the line from the top. Jarvis from the Tachanka onto the Frost. Shadows goes from Jaeger to Alibi. We see PK as the only player to keep an operator, and it's the Azami. Oshi actually also brings in the Bandit to keep consistent, but Bluekey goes from a Frost to a Smoke. That is a drastic change, and JMU either know exactly what they did wrong and is now looking to change it, or they have no clue and are grasping at straws.
All it takes is one round, though, for JMU still. Just one. It's taking a bit to get that one, though. We kind of reached this gatekeep moment. Butler, the king of gatekeeping. I don't know if that's a title you necessarily would like to see. At least it's not the king of gaslighting. JMU may have gaslighted us in the booth of thinking they would have a really solid map too, but that obviously didn't happen. And that's why I was so upset. Didn't like being gaslit by them. 30 seconds on the clock, and Butler are now starting to provide pressure from that office balcony. More so towards the actual statue room itself. Puts that trophy in, but now they're actually starting to bruise through that terrace door, probably sending one through that terrace window as well, which is where they did find the rotate denial in that last round, which I think was the beginning of the end for Butler, playing that perfectly. And James Madison did not choose to rotate through Dragon, which would have been the safer option.
That's an awkward start, and I think they're trying to rotate away, but Gravy's still waiting. in this office door, and there's another follow-up kill. James Madison are being torn limb from limb, operator from operator, and most importantly, roamer from roamer on their defensive setups. Shadows finds one back. At a bare minimum, Enham is taken care of, and the Thatcher is off the board. That's an important aspect maybe later in the round that James Madison now has some control over, but not enough, especially with relinquishing more and more real estate that they just do not have the kills to contend with.
Jarvis holding the restaurant staircase. Just needs to isolate this one player, and they are trapped over there. But the Candelas will force them back. Great thing about Ying is she gets her own little ward and shades when she tosses out those Candelas. Gravy has an alternating angle to maybe help with that pressure. And they're going to have the perfect spot for it. It seems like an inevitable kill against Jarvis here, and it will be the case. JMU, you're shooting yourselves in the foot. It is an awful, awful stance you've made in these last 2 rounds specifically. Just blue key. Can the SMG-11 at that range connect? It seems impossible. And to make matters worse, a smoke and shot straight through. Big Shy just knows. Big Shy just knows. Straight through. Just fire. Can even turn and get the kill. What a unprecedented kill through a smoke. But you know they're there. Just spray through anyways. That's overtime. James Madison failed to conclude, and Butler pulled off a comeback of a lifetime to make it now possibly into the final.
And this is just the first round of OT as well. James Madison will start on the defensive side, which at this point, this is about the most even overtime set of possibilities that we've had in a little while in Rainbow Six. Because it went 3-3 in the first half, 3-3 obviously in the second to make us 6-6. But on no particular site did either team seem favorable. James Madison's only 100% successful site thus far is the one they're currently going to. That being Kitchen Barbecue, which I honestly thought they were going to go to in round 12, but they instead went T-Karaoke twice, and they got absolutely upended on it. Butler, on their attack, I don't know what's going to change. As of right now, they have the exact same composition, but no, they will change Johnsy from that thermite onto the sledge for verticality, and Raikai will be the only primary hard breach on the team. Actually, only hard breach period, as they will bring in the Habana of all operators. It seems like Butler wants to play vertically, and James Madison's more than happy to meet them at that point, but the question is, will it work for them? Also, Jarvis, I think, is going for a spawn peek, but it's not going to work because they have not repelled up that ventilation side. I spawn peek there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm mean.
Glad to know I'm never playing a game with you.
Don't play against me, at least on Skyscraper. That's why I love Sky. It's one of the maps I'm good at.
To be fair, that window jump out inside statue, that was my bread and butter. Because there's also a nitro cell toss you can make direct to that spawn. You wait 3 seconds, you toss, you detonate after 1. Almost always guaranteed to kill. I have a clip somewhere on my other computer that's like a 4K from that. Right off the rip. It was great.
You know, Mason
that was
called
when
me a
Skyscraper
nerd
initially
yesterday.
got brought back.
Mason called me a nerd yesterday. I'm going to return the favor. You're a nerd.
Yeah, it is true. When you only play orcs on the defense, you gotta change things up every once in a while. So you gotta switch to someone new and bring out an action. But speaking of changing things up, JMU, please change things up. You are shooting yourselves in the foot. And yes, Butler has played wonderful angles. They have way more intel, and they are actually providing covering fire for their teammates.
Hello.
It doesn't excuse you not finding these very influential picks early when Butler still hasn't organized themselves to set up for crossfires and defensive. You get one. Raikai off the board. It's a Habana. Big boon. The only hard breach available for Butler. But for an objective like this and the way they're pushing it, I don't think they need the hard breach.
No, originally they were going to try and play top down. Drop Geisha, maybe take care of the hatch there, but I'm honestly pretty sure James Madison opened up the Geisha hatch anyway. The odd part now for Butler is how do you take horizontally? Any real estate you take past this current point is going to be heard. If they open up this door, there's Oshi playing an awkward angle up above, and he finds 2 off the back of it. James Madison finally has made an adjustment. It is to the bottom floor, the only viable site on the bottom floor in most teams' opinion, and it's working in their favor. Butler's now playing up against the ropes, and it's Gravy alone who has to 1v4, has no diffuser, very little time all things considered, and needs to find 4 players in the process. He's dead. There's no way to do anything here. He's going to fall. It's just a matter of where from, and the answer seems to be from up above, as he's going to die from right in front. There's the kill, and there's James Madison right back on match and series point.
Gotta shoot through that slight wall. Can't go through the wall, go through the floorboards. Why not? Can't get out of dodge. JMU will find themselves successful. Took them, what, 4 rounds in a row of a comeback by Butler. In the 4th, they finally returned fire. But unfortunately, now JMU needs to do so on the attack. And Butler shut them out when it came to JMU's attack in that second half. James Madison did a better job of having 3 in a row. But then there comes Butler back in return, which is kind of Butler's specialty. First round win, a 5th and 6th round win. And those 5th and 6th rounds were pretty much flawless from Butler. If I remember correctly, one of them was flawless from Butler, and the other one was denied flawless off of a refract. It was a trade for trade on a kill. JMU have their money cut out for them. They have their work cut out for them. But they do at least have some leeway. Should they lose this, they can go back to the defense, where Butler was doing much better as well.
It's still the trade of how comfortable do you feel? And James Madison, they're doing the same rush setup. We've seen this before, and honestly, now's a perfect time to employ it. When Butler may feel a little bit overcomfortable in the first time they're playing on the defensive side in 7 rounds, which is conveniently also the last time we saw this setup, which kind of worked fairly well for James Madison, all things considered. If Butler can bring it back, this could be a shocking round, considering they do have the on-site presence they need to counter this. It's just a matter of timing. And with those herd repels, they may flex back towards this black side.
Honestly, JMU with 2 players prime there. 3rd actually by Statue Door. Could be another danger. 2 drones.
3
drones. And I'm making a lot of effective work of that util denial. Vulcan canister finally detonated though. Sorry, no. Shamika launcher? No, it is a
Vulcan canister.
Butler has not opted to go for the Tachanka like we saw come out for James Madison. It's kind of shocking in its own right. Another drone out. Inham. Honestly, it should be a war crime to take away this much information from James Madison. And to make matters worse, they can't step forward. Inham is immune to the Blitz Flash. Can see it through the smoke canister that could be tossed by Ashi as well. Best case, they have the Nook nade, but Nook is going to be elsewhere. Nook's going to be roaming around on the other side of the map, maybe more so towards Drum to diversify the approach.
And they're down to 2 drones on this James Madison side. There's one of them. They have 1 drone left in this round, and we're already halfway gone. That's a problem. Enham, unfortunately, does not find the kill there. The last Selma will be used here on this hull wall, but still it's kills for Butler. The defensive side is holding strong when it matters. Gravy is dead. Enham is trying to rotate up, but they may very well be caught out. PK misses his shots, though. That's the one opportunity that may have been there to catch them off guard. A defuse could very well go down. Any opportunity to cut it off from that T side is being held by Jarvis, who finds the down onto Big Shy, and the time is now up against Butler on this defensive half, and the Vulcan canister finishes the down.
Great play by Oshi. Shots unfortunately still coming from T, a danger zone. PK shuts down in him on that stairwell. Raikai's rotated in from Dojo and Makeup. And it has set themselves up to maybe take down Oshi. Oshi will finally fall. Jonesy trapped inside Hall, and PK falls. It's just one man. Jarvis by themselves. Their position not known, but Jonesy will still swing. Somehow, Butler can make a return on a plant round for JMU. They'll survive on one more maximum OT in the final map of full BO3 to determine this semifinal matchup. Will Butler or JMU move on? And I mean move physically to the land to take on Davenport, who just took down the Kettering 2-0.
Also a matter of how far they have to move. For James Madison, that's almost an 8 or 9 hour drive if they're not flying. For Butler, they have to sit down at the computers they're currently playing at. They are actually playing inside of the esports arena in which nationals are being hosted. Butler's gonna move all of maybe 8 inches. And that's to turn around and sit back down after celebrating, assuming of course they win this. James Madison, a 9-hour trek across the Midwest and the Eastern Seaboard as well. Just a matter of whether they can pick it up. And Butler's attack now has to be the decider. James Madison has won this site on one single occasion. They have lost this site on one single occasion on the defensive side. It is a matter of whether the tiebreaker comes through, not only in the full best of 3, but maybe in the best of 3 on one singular site to determine who goes to the finals?
Spawn peek?
Nah, he's just setting it up for the alibi. The Prisma. Tis a bait.
They're gone for it.
Honestly.
JMU need all the help they can get. Butler has looked good. That last round is a little hectic. They still come out on top. I give that one to them through and through. Even though JMU had a pretty solid defense, I think the fact that Inham bought so much time on Stairwell, which had dropped Oshi to low HP, which allowed for Raikai to swing and take them down, a lot of things added up. Even if you can't get the kill, you buy time, which is huge. Jarvis goes for the run out. Like I was saying, they need all the help they can get. They went for it. Falls apart. Lion is on the board, and they do go for a scan, but they're back inside, so not a big issue, and they'll lie immobile forward as well. That's already 60 seconds, and look what Butler have failed to do. They failed to even step inside.
They're playing patient, though, and that setup could work very well for them. That Electro Claw, though, it lands. The exothermic charge is denied, and that's one EMP left, but no exothermic charges remaining. And James Madison, if they're going to pick up any VIP play with utility, that's a way to do it. That's a way to set yourself up for success in a 5v5.
And the only counter right now that Butler have in play is to have Raikai pre-place while the Electro Claw is still shocking, and then toss the EMP in perfect time. And if you're not well rehearsed with that, you're not going to get it right. I don't believe Raikai's done so. No more exothermic charges. Pocket Heart Breach only for Big Shy, and Big Shy's dead. Taken down in a trade. There is no chance now for Butler to entry in from a hard breach. Jonesy's been DB&O'd. Blue Key has found the pickup and a cleanup onto Jonesy as well, and it is just one remaining. Raikai, at least able to take down Blue Key, but Shadows finds the pickup, and that's just enough. JMU. Somehow, some way, Dan. 8-7 our final scoreline in the last map of this BO3. They're moving on to face Davenport.
And now they get the opportunity to defend their title as well. A wild finish, 8-7 required on map 3. They hadn't looked extremely good other than maybe the first half of Sky since all the way back on Border. That's when James Madison was really showing up. They showed up a little bit on Villa, sure, but then Butler went on a 5-0 run to close out the map. Yeah, they scored 3 rounds in the later stages of the second half, but Butler scored 3 back the other way. It was always meeting blow for blow until they couldn't anymore, and the trade game for JMU came down to finding opening trades and closing out the series 2-1.
It would have been an entirely different beast. It would have been a different series if the Electro Claw placed on that wall was not fast enough. And it is unbelievably difficult. For those of you who aren't well versed with R6, the timing for Electro Claw checking is so tight that it is almost impossible. You would go for a bandit 9 times out of 10 because it's that difficult. The reason why it worked is because they had thrown the EMP before the exothermic charge was close enough to be planted, which gave them a 0.5 to 1 second timing interval to get the Electric Claw done. Second one, same exact scenario. They had no more exothermic charges. They had already breached open the wall on the balcony. That was their last one. And when they have a pocket heart breach in the hands of their Amaru, you can't even get over there. Big Shy dies. Huge play for JMU. That was the beginning of the end. They had it in hand. They just needed to win the ones, and they finally clutch up for them. Because honestly, Butler's panic set in, and that's exactly what they needed to have happen. When Butler panics, they make clinical mistakes aiming, and JMU can pounce on that. Let's go and pull up the schedule. This was our last R6 matchup